Good morning, everyone. If you could please make your way to the auditorium, programming will begin shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program is about to begin.
So I'm Chris Kastner. I'm the president and CEO of HII. We're the largest Navy shipbuilder. The products we build, aircraft carriers, submarines, destroyers, amphibious assault ships, have been serving the nation around the globe really for the last 130 years.
I'm Malik Whitaker. I'm a shipbuilder here at HII, and I build submarines. So I am in charge of actually integrating and putting the hull together and testing them prior to delivering them to the Navy. The best feeling is knowing that I'm putting out a quality product that's going to go out there and help protect the world.
We go all the way from welders, fitters, electricians, painters, all the way up to software developers. We have a business that does advanced technology, mission technologies. They're doing cutting-edge artificial intelligence applications. At the start of their careers, we give them paid training in these apprentice schools.
I went through the apprentice school, which is a 4-year program, allows you to rotate in different places throughout the shipyard. And you get a lot of experience that way. Being debt-free is amazing. The company invests a lot in you, and that means they want you to grow and want you to develop and be a big part of their leadership in the future.
So this is really a leadership factory for our manufacturing efforts. The people that go to the apprentice school have to qualify. We graduate about 500 a year. They've chosen this as a career, and they get the top-level training over 4 years so that when they come out, they're leaders. They're foremen, they're general foremen. They can quickly move up through the ranks. We have a very high retention rate. We've had a number of apprentice school graduates become vice presidents at the company. So we count on them to be the leaders going forward. It's one thing we would never change.
Once I finished and received my associate's degree, I actually continued my education and went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill to get my bachelor's degree. And then when I got done, I actually had a job back waiting for me here in our planning department. And then the shipyard actually paid for me to go to College of William & Mary to get my MBA. Apprentice school is definitely the backbone of my career. You actually grow with a set of people, and you have that sense of bond, sense of allegiance to each other that helps you throughout your career. But also gives that credibility because I know my craft as well as being educated. A lot of hard work that goes into it, a lot of team building. To see raw steel transformed into something that can go travel to ocean depths is an amazing process.
What's special about Business Roundtable is the opportunity to share strategies that work for our businesses, our employees, and this nation.
Please welcome to the stage Chris Kastner, President and CEO, HII.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. So first, I love the energy in this room. Last year was a load of fun. I think you're going to learn a lot from some really interesting CEOs today. Got a high-powered agenda for you all, but I learned something today already, which is don't follow Malik on stage. He's an amazing shipbuilder. He builds your Virginia-class submarines, and you can feel safe that he's in charge of that process. And it's not just one Malik. We have a number of them in our organization. They're all products of the apprentice school that we're very, very proud of. So it's a privilege for me to open the second Business Roundtable CEO Workforce Forum. Thank you all for being here. Looking around the room, I'm encouraged. It's filled with leaders from the private and public sectors, people who are not just talking about the American workforce, but who are also working to shape it. You're helping us send a clear message that building a stronger, more competitive U.S. workforce is a shared, urgent priority. We have an exciting morning ahead. You'll hear from business and government leaders, each offering insights into how we can modernize education and workforce systems, build a stronger, sustained pipeline with skilled workers, and expand economic opportunity for all. Whether you're here for business, government, or the education and workforce sectors, thank you for being part of this effort. I'd like to begin with HII, because ultimately, workforce development is not just about policies or programs, it's about people. You just saw a glimpse of HII's workforce story. I want to build on that and explain why today's conversation matters to us. Talent is mission critical to HII. At our core, HII is a workforce development company. Every product we make depends on the skill and dedication of our people. That's why we've invested in programs like our apprenticeship schools and skilled trades training. Through these efforts, we've seen real impact. One result is longevity. HII employs 1,400 master shipbuilders. These are shipbuilders who have been with the company for more than 40 years. Our apprentice schools at Newport News Shipbuilding and Ingalls Shipbuilding have produced almost 20,000 graduates in their histories. The school in Newport News is more than 100 years old. Newport News Apprentice School admits 250 students annually. 3,000 grads work in the shipyard right now. 45% of our production management positions are held by grads, and more than 80% of alumni work at Newport News at least 10 years. Think about that for a second. An 80% retention rate on people that graduate from our apprentice schools, and we don't hold them once they graduate. They can go wherever they want. Some fun facts: the school's athletic programs have won NCAA championships in men's baseball, basketball, wrestling, and football, as well as women's basketball. Finally, after our apprentice schools, our partnership with regional community colleges are our strongest talent pipelines, delivering almost 30% of our new hires. As our experience at HII shows, when you invest in talent and get it right, the impact is powerful for workers, companies, and communities, because good companies don't just hire talent, they grow it. But sustaining a skilled workforce isn't easy, and the challenges we face at HII reflect a broader national trend. First, America's workforce is changing. Our population is still growing, but the workforce isn't keeping pace. More Americans are retiring, and too few are replacing them. One striking statistic from the workforce data firm Lightcast: between now and 2032, population growth is expected to outpace labor force growth by nearly 8 to 1. On top of that, labor force participation trends are uneven. In particular, men's participation rate is declining, affecting key sectors like construction and manufacturing. We're also seeing persistent skill gaps across the workforce. The gap between available skills and needed skills in the workforce is widening. Technology is evolving fast, but education and training systems too often lag behind. These are challenges we feel every day, and ones we can only solve together. And that's why we're here today, to focus on solutions. How do we deliver more skills and opportunities to more workers and help businesses find the talent they need to grow? Over the next few hours, you'll hear from the leaders who are doing just that. We'll start with the focus on manufacturing and skilled trades, two pillars of America's strength and economic resilience. If we invest in recruiting, training, and retaining skilled workers through strategies like skills-based hiring and work-based learning, we can strengthen our industrial base and keep America competitive. We'll begin with panel one, with Blake Moret of Rockwell Automation, Sarah Ambrewster of Steelcase, and Peter Davern of Turner Construction, about how they're modernizing their workforce strategies. They'll share what's working and what can be improved. Then on panel two, we'll hear from Marvin Ellison of Lowe's, David Gitlin of Carrier, and Calvin Butler of Exelon, about how they're creating pathways into skilled trade roles, an enormous opportunity across multiple sectors. I'm especially looking forward to hearing more about a new Business Roundtable initiative to strengthen talent pipelines in the skilled trades. Our third panel addresses how large employers are engines of economic mobility, expanding access to skills, career pathways, and upward mobility. A recent Business Roundtable report shows that over 1 million Americans enter the middle class each year through employment at leading companies. Building on this impact, Jamie Dimon and Kathy Warden will discuss how JP Morgan Chase and Northrop Grumman are using regional strategies to expand access to opportunity for Americans with a range of skills and experiences. Finally, Panel 4 discusses public-private partnerships. Strengthening the American workforce isn't just a business imperative, it also requires smart public policy. Public-private partnerships are essential. The best policies reflect real-world needs and help scale what's already working. Business Roundtable CEOs are focused on policies that modernize the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, expand Pell Grants for short-term workforce-driven education and training programs, also known as Workforce Pell, scale work-based learning opportunities like registered apprenticeship programs, and foster the broader economic conditions through tax, trade, and energy policy that advance growth, competitiveness, and workforce investment. In this final panel, Julie Sweet of Accenture and Deputy Secretary of Labor Keith Sonderling will discuss how employers and government can work together to expand apprenticeships, modernize workforce programs, and prepare for the future of work. So let's get started. Thank you for being here and for your commitment to building a stronger American workforce. One thing I want to say before we get started: don't doubt the toughness and the desire of the American worker. It's our job to give them the tools to achieve their dreams, education, training, and a chance to be successful. We have a powerful program ahead and a lineup of leaders ready to share bold ideas. With that, let's get started. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Blake Moret, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Rockwell Automation out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Probably the most impactful thing that Rockwell has done to impact the United States manufacturing workforce was the introduction of the Academy of Advanced Manufacturing a few years ago. We've provided skills for returning service people to compete and to thrive in technician-level manufacturing jobs at manufacturers across America. When you think about it, there's hundreds of thousands of returning service people every year, and there's hundreds of thousands of unfilled manufacturing jobs in America, and we're helping to make a match.
My name is Nate Bradley. I'm a PLC programmer at Thermotronics here in Sturgeon Bay. Well, after I got out of the Navy, I was looking for work, and I was kind of bottlenecking myself into staying in the same field, the same specialty that I worked on when I was in. So when they reached out to me, offering this position, this program, something I hadn't heard of or would have even thought to look for prior to.
So what we constantly hear from our American manufacturing customers is the importance of having a workforce that can fit into their modern manufacturing processes. The starting point is making sure you have enough people who are interested in filling those jobs and are comfortable interacting with the technology. And of course, programs like the Academy of Advanced Manufacturing give them the tools to be able to be comfortable interacting with that technology.
Programs like AAM are incredibly important, and we should be doing as much as we can to support them, because I found myself coming out of the military feeling like all I had was a very focused set of skills, of a specialty. That specialization led me to think that that's all I had. Programs like AAM took that specialty, that eye for detail, the technical experience, not the knowledge, but the experience, and we're able to extend that beyond what I did in the military. They take that background and effectively translate that into a usable set of skills that work in the civilian sector.
Rockwell's really retooling our hiring practices by focusing on skills versus degrees, and also making sure that we're taking an approach that incorporates lifelong learning. Because when you think about a career, it lasts a long time, regardless of the job you're in. And our employees want to make sure that they're getting the tools and the support to have the relevant skills at all points of their career.
The job that I have now has been an incredible experience. I'm learning a lot. I'm trying new things. That by itself has been an incredible journey. And obviously I'm working again, and I'm not trapped like I thought I was going to be. I'm not stuck in that specialization that I thought I was going to be. There was a very good chance that I was going to be staring at a panel for 8 hours every single day because that's what I did in the Navy. Thanks to AAM, I'm not doing that. I'm doing my own thing. I'm doing something new and fresh and exciting.
Please welcome our first panel, Building America's Manufacturing Sector for the Future, moderated by Peggy Collins, Washington Bureau Chief, Bloomberg News.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. Our first panel of the day, we're going to be discussing Building America's Manufacturing Sector. We're going to be talking about the policies needed to keep America competitive, some of the ways top companies in the sector are dealing with worker shortages, and the creative solutions that they've come up with to not only recruit talent, but retain it. We have an esteemed panel with us of 3 top CEOs in the industry with us this morning. Blake Moret, CEO of Rockwell Automation, based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Sarah Armbruster, CEO of Steelcase Inc., based in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And Peter Davarin, CEO of Turner Construction Company, based in New York. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Blake, I wanted to start with you. Rockwell Automation has a very robust hiring program when it comes to veterans. Can you talk about why you've seen such success with this program and how you see it as scalable to bring in even more workers beyond veterans?
Sure. Well, to start with is the need. As factories all over America automate to be able to complement scarce labor with advanced technology, we, in talking with our customers, determined that technician jobs were really among the most scarce. And so being able to take people with a technical background of some sort, often not with, 4-year degrees, but being able to come out with a high school degree and an occupational specialty that was technically oriented, we found in 12 weeks by applying the same program that we use internally to be able to train our field service engineers and our call support technicians, we were able to train people to go on to take jobs in manufacturing plants around the U.S. And it's a critical need. There's several 100,000 unfilled manufacturing jobs, and there's also several 100,000 veterans who have a lot of the soft skills that are a great starting point for this, who come out into civilian life each year. So it was a great match.
Well, Sarah, I wanted to turn to you to build on that. So Blake was just talking about the literally hundreds of thousands of jobs that are needed out there in the manufacturing sector. Another big group of talent that's hard to draw in and essential to the future is young people. So I know that your company at Steelcase, you've worked a lot at trying to reach people early on and talk about the ways that they can come into manufacturing and through apprentice programs. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
So, building on Blake's comments about scarcity, I think another part of the scarcity challenge for employers, especially in manufacturing, is that a lot of those young people don't think of manufacturing as either a starting point for their career or perhaps the end destination. So we've been really proud to partner with the Business Roundtable and their Skilled Trades Initiative. And we've also done things like work with the state of Michigan's Department of Labor in building an apprenticeship program that gives young people in colleges and even in some cases high school the opportunity to make site visits or participate in apprenticeships or internships or mentorship programs. And I think for a young person who maybe has never been inside a factory or has thought about manufacturing, when they walk in for the first time and they see that a modern manufacturing environment, it's not only clean, but it's high tech, it's cool, but it's also really human with lots of collaboration, lots of creativity, and lots of human-centered elements to it. And I think when they have that moment, it really changes everything in terms of opening up possibilities for them in their career.
Well, Peter, a couple of things that Sarah just touched upon. I know you think about every day with the construction industry, creating a clean and safe workplace environment, but also helping people to understand that, again, it can be a career that you can be in for a long time. How are you doing this in construction?
Well, thank you very much, Peggy. Well, we're under siege. There are 8 million construction workers that show up for work every day, and we're 500,000 short today. And probably in a year, there will be 750,000 short. And I think that the way we have to look at it is our industry is not that welcoming. It needs to be more welcoming. It needs to be more friendly. It needs to be a little bit more, it needs to be a little softer. So we started an initiative many years ago where we are taking every opportunity that we can to create an environment, no matter what it is, whether it's on the job site or in the office, create an environment where people can be at their best, be authentic, and be treated with respect and dignity. Eliminate hate and bias every minute of every day, and take all those energies and put them into active caring. Put them into in active caring for one another on our job sites, in our office, so that you feel that potentially you may be part of something extraordinary. That's the way we're putting our strategy together on every project, so people feel that they're part of something. They can be seen. They can be talked to. And our efforts are also on mental illness and suicide prevention, because it's the largest in the construction industry, the biggest impacts in the construction industry. So in order to meet the demand of the 500,000 and the 750,000 that we need in the next couple of years, we have to change the paradigm of the construction industry being more welcoming, being more friendly, and treating people with respect and dignity. You got to remember, when you were young, you probably were told by a parent or a guardian, go out and treat people the way you want to be treated. We need to bring that into the workplace.
So, Peter, just to stay on that another moment, I think the company has tried over the past several years to also attract women into construction, which maybe decades ago they didn't think of as a career as much as they could now. How has the company been doing that?
Well, I'd say that the percentage of women has not jumped up as much as we would like it to. I think that welcoming issue is still part of the paradigm that we're fighting against. But there are a lot more women in the industry today. It's probably up from 6 to about 12%. And I think that that's still a very, very low number, being 50% of the population. So we were having a conversation before about people in STEM, how far students go into the industry after their STEM education, and there's a big fall off on both men and women. So we need to continue our efforts and do everything we can to bring more women, more disadvantaged people, more people that are disenfranchised, but more women especially in our industry. The United States graduates about 125,000 engineers a year, and again, 20 to 25% of them are women.
So, like Peter was just talking about education, can you talk a little bit about what you think is needed in terms of in America around education to keep fueling the workforce we need for the future?
I think there's a few central comments that are relevant here. First of all, there's multiple pathways. There's not one size fits all. And we certainly understand the role of advanced degrees in a lot of the technology-oriented jobs, but there's so much that can be done where college is not an option for somebody coming out of high school. And one of the things we've found particularly effective are these quick-hit programs. The Academy of Advanced Manufacturing, you saw the video of, it's a 12-week program, and we provide that free of charge for returning service people, and the cost is paid by the hiring companies. And Rockwell, we employ some of the graduates, but the majority go on to other manufacturing companies in the U.S. We have graduated about 500 people from this program, so it's a relatively small number, unless you're one of those people where it's an absolutely life-changing event. But it's a point of light, if you will, and by working with partners and communities in which we're in, we found that this can be expanded with, and we've talked with other companies doing similar things, and together it does take a dent. It makes a dent in the population and in the shortages of these manufacturers. We see some policy that's helpful in this area, extending Pell Grants, for instance, to short-term programs, modernizing the Workforce and Innovation Opportunity Act. So there's some things there to be able to better align the realities of people, a lot of the young people coming out today, to be able to match what they have in their interest with, this huge number of unfilled jobs.
Sarah, I know there's a lot of talk in Washington right now about education and things like Pell Grants you just mentioned. Blake, what are your thoughts on what's needed in terms of education policy?
Well, I would say that, in addition to the kinds of education policy items that Blake just mentioned, I think about it from the standpoint of an employer who says, okay, now I've hired that person. I've got to continue to invest in their learning and their development. So I think things like tax incentives for employers that continue to invest in training are critical. I think especially in a manufacturing environment, the shelf life today of a skill, I think, is shorter than ever. So it can't just be you train the person and then they're set for their career. I think learning and education has to be an ongoing part of someone's career to help them be successful and to help us as the employer be successful. So I think those kinds of incentives would be really beneficial. The other thing I think about is support for, again, things like modern apprenticeship programs, as we talked about earlier, ways to bring people in and combine hands-on training and job experience with formal education to enable people to really understand the tools and the technologies that they're going to be using on the job. So I think policies that can support those types of programs would be really beneficial for supporting us as employers and the U.S. workforce.
Sarah, you just touched on a couple of things I hope we'll talk more about, upskilling being one of them, but the other is a buzzword in Washington right now. You use the word tax. And certainly we've been reporting relentlessly on the tax bill that's moving through Washington right now and could reach the president's desk as soon as July 4th. So what are your thoughts in terms of some of the provisions in the tax bill right now that are potentially going to extend some business tax deductions for research and development, other depreciation? What do you think is really, what are you hoping for in terms of what will come out of the tax bill?
Well, a couple of things that, I've been paying attention to, and obviously every day there's new news on the tax bill, but I think certain elements that are being discussed, like some of the R&D expensing and bonus depreciation, I think those things, if those make it into the final bill, I think could be really beneficial in terms of creating an environment that encourages businesses to continue to invest for the long term and invest in their workers. On the flip side, I also see, for example, some of the conversation around clean energy and incentives to invest in clean energy. And I think depending on where those shake out, lots of organizations, including mine, are really actively making investments in some of those technologies like solar that I think allow us to produce more efficiently, but also employ people. So I think, depending on where that lands, that could cause some companies to pull back on some of those investments. So I think it's a bit of a moving target right now, but those are some of the things I'm paying attention to.
Yeah. You've heard this a lot, but more certainty around the cost base that drives a return on investment for new capital expenditures is really important right now. So there's a lot of positive things that come out in the tax bill. Tariffs are out there too.
You just used another big word in Washington.
We were going to get to it sooner or later, and the certainty around that is really important. I mean, as we've talked to our customers, while they continue to invest in line expansions and modernizations with new technology that help them be especially competitive around the world, we do see a pause on some of the capital expenditures, which will bring with it new employment opportunities as well. But these companies want to be sure that the return on investment that was part of the original business case for making these investments is still firmly in place. And that means understanding what your costs are going to be and making sure that the revenue expectations of these new business ventures are still going to be valid so that they can count on the same demand from their customers. That's what we heard as we talked to companies that either have pulled the trigger on new investments or are holding off. Those are really the top two, concerns that they're seeking a little bit more clarity on. They know that things aren't going to be perfectly clear going forward, but when they're making decisions to pause, those are the most commonly cited reasons.
I couldn't agree with you more, Blake and Sarah. I think that the uncertainty prior to something going into law is a very distracting area of concern. But once the tax bill gets passed, assuming it does, then the uncertainty goes down. You're dealt with the law. You have to follow the law. And what I hope it will do is spur more development in the manufacturing areas of our country and more construction and things of that nature. But I think what it'll do is it'll give people more opportunities to forecast what results can be, forecast what the costs are going to be. And I think that what we've learned in the last 8 years is that the United States has gone through a modern-day industrial revolution with all the factories that are being made today. In a construction site, 90% of all construction materials can come from the United States. This is a very big issue, and it's helping us a great deal. So eliminating the uncertainty and going to a certain strategy moving forward is really what we hope we'll get out of this tax bill.
So, Peter, staying on that one more moment, when you think about this industrial revolution, this renaissance in manufacturing in the U.S. that the administration is trying to achieve, what do you think is one of the most important things that we need right now to actually meet that goal?
I think that back in 8 years ago, all construction materials, a third of construction materials came from overseas. And I think that that's now at 10%. So 90% of the materials that you can get today for any project in the United States come from the United States. And we have 400 people just monitoring supply chain issues. And I think that that number will go up. I think it will go up to 100% of all construction materials in the United States. I'm hopeful that that is the way it's going to go. And I really believe that we will be self-sufficient in building our buildings, building from materials in the United States.
Yeah, and if I can add, I mean, just to underscore the importance of manufacturing, I think from a professional standpoint, it is really at the very core of the American economy. There are about 12 million people who are directly employed in manufacturing today, and it's far more than that when you think about people whose jobs are to service the manufacturing sector, capital formation, and things like that. To be able to make this strong, it takes a comprehensive approach, and certainly targeted tariffs are a part of that to level the playing field. Tax and the things that we've talked about and are optimistic for, regulatory reform, which I think construction could certainly empathize with, workforce development, which of course is the theme of this program, and the thoughtful use of technology. Labor costs are relatively higher in the U.S. than in other places, certain other places around the world. That's a fact. But to be able to be competitive with anybody in the world, to be able to take on all comers and to be successful, the use of technology along with an engaged and enabled workforce really is the winning hand.
Sarah, anything your company is dealing with right now when you think about the uncertainty around tariffs? Your company designs and produces furniture, for high-performing workplaces and offices, but furniture is, something people can relate to. At the same time, how is this uncertainty affecting your ability to hire and plan for the future?
Yeah, well, I think for us, certainly we are experiencing the uncertainty like many others. And, Steelcase, we take great pride in being a very agile and adaptable organization. We're more than 100 years old, and we've had to be very agile to survive for that many years. But at the same time, I think the uncertainty, as you were both describing, impacts not only us and our ability to plan for the long term, but more importantly, it impacts our customers. And when our customers feel uncertainty about making the decision to invest in their workplace or invest in the products or in projects that drive demand for our business, we really feel that. So just to give you a quick example, I remember in April during one of the rounds of tariffs going in and out and back and forth, there was some new set of tariffs that were taking effect at midnight that night, and that very next day we had a board of directors meeting. So we had spent a bunch of time trying to prepare to spend the whole morning taking our board through, how these particular tariffs that had just gone into effect at midnight would impact our business and our budget and our plans. And then we went to lunch with our board, and, I think around 1 o'clock that afternoon, we started getting the news alert saying that those tariffs had now gone away. So we literally, in the span of 6 hours had, been through a whole cycle of are we or aren't we? So I think that kind of environment makes it, especially challenging. And I have absolute confidence in our policymakers in Washington and elsewhere that they will make decisions that are in the best interest of the U.S. and the U.S. economy, but it would be great to have that paired with clear communications and some degree of certainty and stability to help all of us make good decisions.
So, Peter, one of the other big policy decisions or inflection points here in D.C. is around immigration and immigration policy. And often when we think about workforce development in industries like construction, that's something that immigrants have fueled for a long time in terms of jobs. What's your viewpoint on that going forward?
Well, first of all, you have to follow the law. There's no question about it. You have to follow the law. So we do an audit of all of our 13,000 employees and the 142,000 people that we have on our job sites every day to make sure that they have the right permitting and things of that nature. We'd like to see a path for immigrants, both in the construction industry, the food industry, and all this, for a clear path for citizenship. We'd like to see that. We believe that, from what we understand, that there may be an immigration bill maybe in the third year of this term. That would be a good thing to see, and it will help eliminate uncertainty, help define home strategies for a lot of the people that want to seek work in our industries. So we are supporting the immigration efforts in the administration to try to find the most efficient path to citizenship as we currently see it.
Blake, you mentioned technology, another big T word. We've talked about taxes, tariffs, technology. AI is something that is changing the way companies are planning for the future in lots of different industries, but it's also making a lot of workers nervous, or affects what careers they want to go into, because they're thinking, well, that job may not even exist in 5 years. So what are you seeing in terms of technology, AI, and the workforce?
Yeah, I mean, we like to frame the adoption of new technology, and of course artificial intelligence is a big piece of this, as a way to give scarce workers superpowers, to be able to make the most of their skills. And it's all about being competitive globally. And so, as I mentioned before, that really is through the combination of using cutting-edge technology along with the workforce that's comfortable interacting with it. When you do that, you're competitive and you can do more of whatever it is that you're doing, make more of whatever it is you make, and that generally involves hiring more people, right? It's not the same jobs as existed necessarily 20 years ago, but it's more jobs. And when you can do it efficiently, you earn the ability to be able to enter into new lines of business. I know in our own company, adding cybersecurity consulting, adding mobile robots through an acquisition, other activities, digital services, creating digital twins and optimizing throughput for our customers through simulation tools. Those are all things that we were able to do by earning a certain amount of profit and being able to expand into new lines of business, which involved hiring. I mean, we're an automation company, but we have significantly more people than we did when I came into the role, and I expect we'll continue to hire. Again, it's not going to be exactly the same jobs, but that's why we spend so much time in concepts of lifelong learning that Sarah talked about are super important. People who have the domain expertise, who understand manufacturing, and being able to add through the course of their career a comfort with generative AI, to be able to use the new tools to allow them to be able to make the most of their knowledge. We really think that that's what contributes to the most successful companies.
Sarah, you talked earlier about upskilling. How I feel like in these times where technology is advancing so quickly, it's hard to stay ahead in terms of skills so that you can keep adapting to how technology is replacing some of the rote tasks, but then that you have the skilled workforce to do the advanced manufacturing. How are you adapting to that?
Well, I think it goes back to that continual effort and investment in skilling our workers or giving our workers new skills to allow them to be successful. So I think technology investment has to go hand in hand with training and development. It's hard for me to imagine how we would do one without doing the other. So just an example, over the past few years, we've invested pretty heavily in automation and new technologies to allow our factories to do mixed model manufacturing. So essentially being able to create like a very wide variety of quite disparate products like on one factory line. And we made that investment in the technology, but we had to pair that with investing in our people and training them to use these new tools and new technologies in ways that, you know, we believe are not just about allowing us to operate more efficiently, but really allow us to unlock the full potential both of our systems, you know, and our people. So I think that combination, I don't see technology and talent as a trade-off. I think you invest in both, you know, hand in hand, and that's how you keep moving everyone forward.
Peter, when you think about meeting the challenge of 500,000, I think you said, new construction jobs that needs to be filled over the next several years, what do you think is one of the biggest challenges to meeting that goal?
I think that, as I said earlier, Peggy, the biggest challenge is making our industry more welcoming, making sure that people find a place where they can be at their best and be treated with respect and dignity. We truly believe, and we signed a charter with the BRT many years ago, that all-encompassing loyalty to our companies, not just the shareholders, but to the employees. And we really believe that our philosophy is people first, projects second, and profits third. Because if you get the first two correct, the profits will come. So I think that in order to meet the demand, there are so many workforce development programs. There's the ACE mentorship program, the Pell Grants. There's so many different organizations out there providing for the models for people to come into the industry, but we're not attracting them fast enough because of the perception of the industry. We have to change the perception of the industry. You have to remember, the 8 million construction workers are professionals. These are skilled people. They're professionals. And I think we have to change the paradigm in the United States, whereas what's Mary going to do when she graduates from high school? Well, the real answer, the normal answer is, oh, she's going to go to college. But maybe we need to change the paradigm where, so what's Mary going to do after high school? Well, Mary's going to be an electrician making $100,000 a year. And I think that's where we have to put our efforts into those options, that the options are that you can earn a living, you can grow a family, you can do anything you want to do because the opportunity is here in the United States.
One of the things I think is so exciting about being on a panel with CEOs who have the vantage point of thinking about how their businesses are doing and growing, but also like, are they able to hire like you're thinking about right now? It gives you an incredible vantage point into the U.S. economy, but also the global economy. And so much of the ability to keep jobs growing in the U.S., like we've seen them hold up over the last few years, is whether that economy holds up. So from your vantage point, Blake, where you sit in Milwaukee, how is the economy doing?
I'm optimistic. I think that as we talk to our customers, and we serve customers across all sectors of manufacturing, from automotive to warehouse automation and e-commerce, pharmaceuticals, food and beverage, energy, chemicals, mining. There is still significant pent-up demand for making investments. CapEx spending really hasn't recovered completely all the way back, if you go all the way back to the Great Recession in 2009. So there's a lot of opportunity to deploy these dollars, and I think that's still to come. I continue to look at the unemployment rate as maybe the one KPI that's the best bellwether, and at 4.2%, like almost a point lower in Wisconsin, which has a lot of manufacturing, that's positive. And as long as we can keep unemployment low, and we can, in fact, add, enough certainty to where we're going to unleash the investment in America, then I think we do have an opportunity to leave others behind economically and to really prosper over the coming years.
Sarah, from your vantage point in Grand Rapids, Michigan, what are you seeing with the?
Yeah, I would share I share Blake's optimism, and I look at it from the vantage point of the CEO of a company who, the majority of our business is providing furniture for office environments for companies around the world. So both of my fellow panelists are great customers of Steelcase, which we appreciate, and so are many other organizations. And so I look at, the investment that our customers are making and the continued growth that we see in investments in their workplaces and their people as they both grow their business and they aim to do things like attract and retain talent and advance their culture. And I hear lots of stories. One, I was just talking to the CEO a few weeks back of a major financial services organization who was sharing with me that, during COVID, like many companies, people were sent home, office workers were working from the office. During that, couple of years, they eliminated a number of their leases and quite a bit of their office space. But they continued to hire as they grow. So his dilemma was, I'm bringing all these people back, and I have thousands of more employees today than I did 3 years ago, but I got rid of all my space. So they're actually aggressively taking on leases, trying to fit out new space to give their people a home and to foster the growth in their own business. So I hear lots of stories like that make me continue to feel optimistic about the U.S. economy and employment and the growth that I think we will all enjoy.
Peter, you're not only in your industry at the center of jobs and the economy, but also interest rates. The Fed's meeting tomorrow. From your vantage point, running the construction company that you do, how's the economy doing?
I first of all, I want to mention that I sit in one of Sarah's chairs and I have a table.
You love it.
And I love it. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm very optimistic about our future. I really, truly believe that the best is yet to come. The world is filled with many distractions, extreme anxiety and pain in a lot of different places. But we need to get through the distractions. We still have so many mouths to feed. We have so many people we're responsible for, so many people that we're accountable for. Our job is, my job as a CEO is to create the next 25, 50, 100 years of existence and sustainability of our company. And you only do that through optimism. You only do that through making sure that people are taken care of. You only do that by being the best cheerleader that you can, even in challenging and very uncertain times. But I really truly believe that the best is yet to come. We're going to get through the distractions and we're going to head forward. We have to.
Well, I almost want to end there because that was such a positive, optimistic note, but we do have just a minute or so left. So Blake, going back to workforce development and building a competitive and successful manufacturing sector in America, what's one thing that you think you want to make sure people take away from you on the panel this morning?
I'll give you three short things. But we've talked about some of this before. First is lifelong learning and the concept of lifelong learning. You think about a 40-plus year career and how things have changed. I know since I started out a long time ago, to the skills that are important for my workforce today, and being able to provide the opportunities to continue to improve, in the technical skills, the management skills, just being able to move with the flow of progress there, super important. Second, as you develop educational programs for your workforce, it has to be outcome-based. It can't just be rote training, put somebody in a class for a week. People learn in different ways, some self-paced, some in a cohort, but outcome-based, what actually works. And sometimes that requires longitudinal studies to be able to track the progress over a period of time. We do that with our Academy of Advanced Manufacturing, and the results are super encouraging. You got to do it. It's a lot of work. It takes, years worth of data collection to see how it's actually showing up in the marketplace. But that outcome-based approach is really important. And then finally is the partnerships. Training often has an intensely local element to it, so making partnerships with the local community colleges, with the customers, the businesses, the manufacturing companies in our case that are going to be the consumers in understanding what's available to them, what community colleges are around, what skills are they looking for, who can help deliver a comprehensive approach to manufacturing. So we work with robotics manufacturers and we work with other purveyors of technology, because that's what the real world looks like. It's not just a array of Allen Bradley brand products that we sell. It's all the other technologies. And so bringing those consortia, if you will, together in partnerships is also really important.
Thank you, Blake. Sarah, key takeaway?
Gosh, that was a great list from Blake, so maybe I'll add one thing, just building on your comment about partnerships. I think another place that we've touched on in this panel where partnerships can really help between industry, government, the education sector, and others is in this idea of how do we reframe people, and especially young people's views of careers in manufacturing and construction in these industries that maybe aren't always someone's first, thought when they decide, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I just, because I've seen it with my own eyes, when you bring someone into a modern manufacturing facility and you help them see the possibilities, that is can be a life-changing moment. So how can we work together to create more of those opportunities for more people?
Peter, you talked about dignity and you talked about being optimistic for the future. Any other key takeaway?
I would say, we have a lot of leaders in the room. Go out and care for everyone that you come in contact with, and the strangers that you don't come in contact with until you meet with them for the first time. I think if you care, it's hard work. If you don't care, life is a cinch. And I think you have to go out and care for people, and you have to make an effort to connect with them, because you may impact somebody's life, and then they will model that behavior and hopefully impact somebody else's life.
Well, thanks to our incredible panel for their time, effort, and care today. Thank you. Thank you.
At Exelon, we believe our greatest asset is our people. So in 2019, we brought together all of our workforce efforts under one strategy: provide meaningful, family-supporting careers and drive economic prosperity in our communities. Since 2019, we have invested more than $75 million total in our workforce development efforts across the company. But most importantly, more than 2,000 people who live in communities served by Exelon have been hired into family-supporting careers. That's something that Exelon and I am very proud of.
Hello, my name is Jawan Cheeks, and I'm a project manager with Pepco, an Exelon company.
Jawan Cheeks is a great example. During COVID, he couldn't find work with his engineering degree. Through the DC Infrastructure Academy's Pepco Utility Training Program, he found not just a job, but a career. And now he's helping lead projects that power his community.
After graduating from North Carolina A&T State University, the pandemic hit. I struggled to find a job to make good use of my mechanical engineering degree. I ended up working in a warehouse, but I wanted more for myself. DCIA opened that door for me. At DCIA, we learned everything. Even though my cohort was specifically for underground lineman training, we learned electrical theory, line work for overhead and underground, safety, and even fitness. I earned industry certifications, got hands-on experience. It really set me up for success.
We're building the energy workforce of the future, partnering with schools, nonprofits, and community partners to make sure people in our communities are ready for family-supporting careers today, as well as the energy jobs of the future.
They don't just train you, they believe in you. That belief in me gave me confidence to lead and take on bigger roles within project management. Exelon invested in me. From day one, that support changed my life.
I am Corey Berry. I am the CEO of Best Buy based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I think philosophically, we're always trying to prepare our employees for what's next. Next job, next technology, next realm of what you need to know. And one of the programs I'm really proud of is called the Altitude program. We literally take people out of their day job, mostly leaders at the director level in the field, and put them into a cohort focused on mentorship and learning and strategic development. We had heard that people didn't have as much strategic thinking time. And so we really wanted to double down on how do you train someone? And I think Kristen is a beautiful example of that. And I think you can see in her passion, it really makes a difference when you decide you're going to invest in someone's development.
Hi there, I'm Kristen Houle, and I'm an Associate Vice President at Best Buy. Started part-time with the company, really just paying for college, and has worked my way up to Associate Vice President. Through that time, I've done various roles within the field, multi-unit, store leadership, general manager, director, senior director, and now I just recently got promoted to Associate Vice President. Best Buy has provided me plenty of opportunities with different programs. Most recently, we've been focused on the emerging talent within our talent system, and I've had the opportunity to be in a temp assignment that's dedicated just to my development called Altitude. Within that program, it's really stretched me to get uncomfortable and just try different things and build those skills to be ready for the next level positions.
So with 80,000 employees, both the hardest and the most wonderful thing about a workforce like that is you have 80,000 individuals with 80,000 individual needs. And at Best Buy, one of our core values is unleashing the power of the people. And you only can do that when you help create the best possible work environment and create what I call scaffolding around each individual employee. Basically, we went from a really ubiquitous workforce who all did the same thing to thinking really uniquely about the needs of that individual employee and allowing them as much flexibility both in what they learn, how deeply they learn it, and when and how they want to work.
I'm incredibly grateful to the investments Best Buy makes. One of the company values that's been there since before I've been with the company is unleash the power of the people. And that's really about being our authentic selves. I get to bring myself to work while working on my skills and development, and it pulls through at home. Best Buy has had a tremendous impact on me personally and professionally.
Please welcome our next panel. America's industrial base is powered by skilled workers. Moderated by Kevin O'Connor, host, This Old House.
Thank you.
Good morning. As you heard, I'm Kevin O'Connor from This Old House. And I will start by saying that for the 45 years that our show has been on television, we have first and foremost always highlighted the trades. Each of our on-camera experts is and has always been a licensed professional contractor. Now, it is becoming more difficult for us to highlight the trades simply because there are fewer people going into it. And that is a problem that we feel acutely within construction, and in particular residential renovation. But the gentlemen who share the stage with me today see it from a much broader perspective. They see it not only in construction, but also in industrial, manufacturing, energy, service techs, and all of that. They also happen to be the leaders of the initiative with the Business Roundtable that is on the front lines trying to address this issue. They have initiatives in place at their companies already and new ones that are coming, which is why they are up here today. So let me just start with a couple quick introductions, and then we will get right to it. David Gitlin in the center right here, Chairman and CEO of Carrier, a global leader in intelligent climate and energy solutions, 35 brands, 50,000 employees, and serving customers in 160 countries. Calvin Butler on the left, President and CEO of Exelon, one of the nation's largest utility companies, serving 10 million electric and gas customers across 6 states, as well as the District of Columbia. And Marvin Ellison, right here, is the Chairman and CEO of Lowe's, a Fortune 100 company with a retailer of over 1,700 locations and 300 associates. We have about 30 minutes or so to get into it, so let's start right away. And David, I'm going to start with you. You have already announced some initiatives, both in manufacturing and the service tech, which we want to hear about. But for every person who's going into the trades, it turns out that the statistics tell us that there are maybe 20 job openings out there. And so the question is, what are you doing about that? What can we all do about that? And how do we create a sustainable pipeline to start filling all of those existing open jobs?
Well, Kevin, thanks to you for being here, and Marvin and Calvin. It's a real pleasure for me to be here with both of you. The problem statement, Kevin, is significant. You mentioned that there's, for every 20 job postings that we have, there is one qualified applicant right now. And if you think about the economy in the United States as a whole, the ratio of job postings to unemployed is 1-to-1. So we have a significant gap in qualified, skilled professionals, and it's only going to become more significant because the demand for skilled professionals is just going to increase. You think about our industry, we now have infrastructure spend. We have data centers going up. A data center may have 150 chillers in it, so you might need 4 dedicated technicians just for one facility, where you might have 4 dedicated technicians for the south part of Chicago. So the demand in HVAC, the HVAC industry, we have 425,000 technicians today. We're going to need to hire another 400,000 to 500,000 over the next 10 years. And what you're seeing is fewer folks going into the field. So we have an aging population. Just 10 years ago, 1 out of every 3 high school graduates would go to a community college vocational school. In just 10 years, that ratio has gone to 1 out of 6. It used to be that if your father, and I say father because for our technicians, this is another issue, 99% are male.
Right.
But if your parent was an electrician or a plumber or a residential HVAC technician, you often went into it. They're often going down different pursuits, warehouses, digital careers. So the amount of applicants going into vocational schools is decreasing, and the available younger population is decreasing, and the demand is increasing. So at Carrier, we're doing a whole bunch of stuff, and I think with Marvin and Lowe's and the BRT initiative, we're going to double down on making it more attractive to enter into what's a really exciting and attractive career. And it can be apprenticeships. We're partnering with vocational schools like the Laurel Institute. We're partnering with the unions like the pipe fitter unions. We're creating career advancements through becoming a journeyman or a foreman, so technicians have more upward mobility, more incentive compensation, more benefits. So we want to make this more digital opportunities. So big problem statement, but I know with this group and the CEOs of America coming together, we can address this head on.
Okay. Marvin, you've done your share of supporting the skilled trades. You've done it in the community. You've done it with nonprofit associations. Can you tell us about some of those things that your company has done, and specifically whether there's anything out there that you find has really worked and should maybe be emulated by other companies?
Well, yeah, it's great to be here, and for me, it really starts before I became the CEO of Lowe's. I grew up in a rural community in Western Tennessee, and it was not uncommon back then for me that you had the high school that had most of the traditional academics, but then next door you had a vocational building for guys and girls who wanted to learn a general skill in auto body, construction, electrician, plumbing, and a lot of those people who are my former classmates turned that into not only jobs but careers and businesses. But over time, for some reason, we started to look upon those types of jobs as secondary and less than, versus getting a 4-year education. And for me, candidly, that was the perception that I understood coming out of high school. But that's dramatically changing because of need. And so what we've decided to do as a company, to your point, is to just say, what can we do versus looking at this and being concerned about the trajectory? Can we help to change it? And so a couple of years ago, we started an initiative through a program we call Gable Grants, where we decided to invest $50 million over 5 years to create 5,000 skilled trades, employees or opportunities for individuals, whether they work for us or someone else. Because the biggest challenge we hear from our customers who are contractors is they can't find skilled labor. And as excited as all of us are about the emergence of technology like AI, AI isn't going to fix a hole in your roof. It's not going to respond to an electrical issue in your home. It's not going to stop your water heater from leaking. And so we're always going to need, in my space, in these gentlemen's world as well, skilled trades individuals. And so we took this 5-year initiative and we started to invest directly into vocational schools, community colleges, and any organization with a commitment to creating skilled trades for individuals who wanted to learn how to do this. I give you an interesting statistic. Today, as we sit here, the construction trade has 500,000 job opportunities that are unfilled because people are not skilled to do the job. Just think about that for a second. And in the electrical trade as an electrician, there are 80,000 job openings per year that they're trying to fill, but they cannot find the skilled labor. And so we've invested in these community colleges, these local organizations. And in addition to that, we had a really interesting initiative recently where, oftentimes you have kids that sign a letter of intent to go to college to play sports. We had a group, USA Skills, that we partnered with, and we basically had, roughly 5,000 kids that signed up for skilled trades. That was their signing day, to go to one of these locations to get a skill. So we're investing, we're working cross-functionally with others to try to make sure we can bring visibility to the issue, but more importantly, as a big part of our community, what can we do to help change the trajectory?
Right. So Calvin, 10 million customers across several regions. I can pretty much assume they all want the lights to stay on.
That's it.
Across those same regions, though, severe shortages in workforce development, in particular in your sector of energy. What is it that you guys are seeing in terms of how acute the problem is, and what is it that you're hoping to do to recruit and to create that sustainable pipeline? Because we're going to continue, as we've heard from these statistics, need so many more people coming into these fields.
Kevin, thank you. And to the Business Roundtable, thank you for having me and even having this conversation. And like my colleagues, I love the statistics that they put out there because the issue is real. And when you take the energy sector, we're in a period right now of unprecedented growth. So what that means is that how are we going to step up to the challenge? You talk about having the privilege and responsibility to serve 10.5 million customers. But what that does is that when the men and women, when something goes wrong, they need to be there to show up, but more importantly, doing the job each and every day. It starts with the partnership with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBW. Identifying the problem and really helping drive the solution. How do we get individuals, earmarked or targeted to go into the training required to keep the lights on and the gas flowing. That's one. Two, what are we doing then as a company to foster an environment that is encouraging young people from the communities that we serve to work here? Now, you think about where Exelon's footprint is. We're in both urban, rural, coastal communities. Some of the richest zip codes and also some of the most under-resourced zip codes. And we're a big believer as your host utility, and we're part of the economic engines of those cities. How do we encourage those that live in those communities to work for us? So what we recognize is that our typical community college programs, our typical college recruitment wasn't going to do it. We had to start in the high school level, letting these young men and women know that there's opportunities at our work, at our place, because no one was talking to them. And what we also had to recognize is that they had to have an understanding where I need you to keep your nose clean, and if you do, we have opportunities for you. So we started offering internships as early as their sophomore year in high school. We went in and developed a curriculum within those high schools to train them how to do these jobs and bring them in throughout the summer and assure them that this first summer you do what you have to do, you stay with us. We would provide them transportation to the workforce. We also recognized that some of these young people that we were trying to attract, you get into the environment, they had never been in a corporate environment or work environment before. So then you had to go into the soft skills. Now people would be like, look, you just want the best. Yes, we want the best and brightest, but we were going to train them. And then the next issue we identified, to be a utility worker, you also had to pass a test called a CAS test. Now, if you are a young person that is not technically inclined or had never done that before, that CAS test might as well have been in French. We worked with the high schools to begin preparing them to pass that exam. We're not giving answers, but giving them the thought process and the analytical and technical skills to get there. And what we're seeing, because we have an aging workforce that has been identified, that we now have a pipeline of young people. But let me also stress, what we also did is we partnered with local and national organizations to really identify the need and the opportunity. One program I'd like to tee up is Year Up. The Year Up national program, we've been involved with them for years, and what I can do is this. Those are some of the smartest young people in the IT field with no college degree but certifications. Because these young people are digital natives, I get my problem solved so quick, whereas opposed you give me someone with a degree, they're going to come back, give me 5 hours later. These young people take my phone, take my laptop, and those are all those years. We employ hundreds of Year Up interns across our organization on an annual basis. One example. Another national program is NEED, where we identify high school students to come into our area every year and really focus on energy, STEM education. We see the need, we fill the gap, and we work with our peers across the entire sector on why can't you duplicate this effort. What I love about this is that so often as CEOs, we get to talk about the great things we do as an organization, but it's even better when others emulate what we're doing, because then the impact is tenfold, and that's what we're trying to do.
So something doesn't add up. I mean, we have got hundreds of thousands, millions of job openings. David, we were talking out back. The average wage for some of your technicians is $100,000. So lots of jobs, lots of really good jobs, a huge shortage. Can we acknowledge that there is a perception problem? This is a question for all three of you. Maybe you believe that, maybe you don't. I'd love to hear if you do or not. But I'd also, if you do believe that there is a perception problem, that we've, for whatever reason, told young people that working with your hands is not as glamorous as going to college or something like that, is there a responsibility of corporate America to lean in to change that perception problem? Anyone?
Well, I think there's 100% a perception problem. Calvin was talking about partnering with sophomores in high school, which, I was taking mental notes of that because that's phenomenal. We've been doing it with seniors and helping pay their scholarships to go to a vocational school, and then if there's an HVAC curriculum like at the Laurel Institute, we teach the class, we provide them internships. But to see you starting at the sophomore year is very, very interesting. But, you know, some decades ago, and it's similar to what Marvin was talking about, school classes in high school had home ec, they had industrial arts. You used to take woodworking as a junior, you took welding as a senior, and it became that it was a very natural progression. It was much more exciting to play with your hands with cars or to do a lot of that mechanical work. And now it's about digital, it's about that 4-year degree. But I'll tell you, you can get a community college education for $5,000. A 4-year public institute is $25,000. The average 4-year private is $60,000 at a university. And I'm not in any way disparaging 4-year schools, but only 60% of those graduating from college today have a job full-time in their year of expertise within 6 months.
Right.
So I think that there's 100%, Kevin, a perception issue, and I think it's our job to make it clear by having people spend time with our companies and see how interesting it is. And Calvin was talking about some of the soft skills. Our technicians are not only on the front line repairing chillers and in the residential space, the condensing unit outside your home. They're interfacing with human beings. They're interfacing with customers. We actually give our technicians incentive compensation for sales. So they are a part of our sales force. So it's a much more attractive industry with upward mobility into different fields as well.
Do you agree, perception problem? And do you have thoughts on how we or how you all lean into changing that?
Yeah, I think for sure. And I think that, you know, we've all probably played a role in the perception problem. You know, I grew up in this little rural community. You know, my dad never graduated from high school. And so every generation would like to see the next generation do better. And so I was taught from my earliest remembrance of words that I was going to college because it was a dream and aspiration that my parents could not achieve themselves. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's also okay to take a step back and kind of look at where we are and look at where the opportunities exist for career growth. You know, even in my environment with, you know, 1,700 plus stores and over 300,000 employees, when young people come to me and they desire to work in the corporate office, my advice to them, stay as close to the cash register as you can.
That's right. That's right.
Which means stay in the stores, stay close to the customers, because you will always have employment opportunities to grow, because we sometimes aspire for things based on perception, not on the reality of opportunity. And the statistics bear out that there's incredible career growth opportunities, incredible earning potential, and the opportunity is going to be significant. And I also think, quite candidly, with the emergence of modern technology, whether it's large language models, AI, and all the other next level innovations that we don't even understand yet, these jobs are going to be more in demand and more available because technology will supplement some of the corporate jobs that people aspire to over the last couple of decades. But these jobs will be jobs that will be required that technology, as I mentioned earlier, just will not have the ability to solve as quickly and as efficiently. So I do think, you know, that we're going to get on a platform, and we're very thankful of the BRT to give us this opportunity to educate and to make this more of a relevant topic across multiple industries, because this is going to be a critical issue in America if it's not already one, and we want to get in front of it.
Oh, it already is one. Calvin, I mean.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a perception issue, but I also would think there's a knowledge gap. And I'll tell you where I think about the knowledge gap. The knowledge gap is within high schools themselves to how they're talking about opportunities. A high school guidance counselor is incentivized to say, you talk about how many of your kids are going to college.
Right.
When we showed up at the local high schools, they didn't even know where to start. So we went back, we took a step back and went into the superintendent. They didn't know where to send us and how to connect us. So what we did, we started talking to individual principals. And what we found is that when you spoke with the guidance counselors, because their lack of knowledge as to opportunities that may present themselves at Carrier, Lowe's, or Exelon, or one of our utilities, they didn't know how to start the conversation with the young people. So when we stepped in, it became a model for what we did in other local high schools. That is what I saw as one of the biggest gaps, because the people that are most influential is those that are in the schools each and every day. And if they're not saying, hey, I see where your skill set or your aptitude is lead, have you considered? Just turn the light on. All pun was intentional. And we can do the rest. And that's what we've seen has been the most powerful difference for us, is that getting those teachers and guidance counselors to think beyond a college degree as the only way that someone can make a living, a family-sustaining job. To David's point, you come out after 3 or 4 years of training as a journalist, you're making $100,000 without any overtime, and we're changing lives in that way, and that's what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. One other thing, Kevin, on high schools, to Calvin's point, is most high school offer AP courses where you get credit towards classes in a 4-year school. They do not offer classes that will go towards credit at a community or vocational school.
Right. Yeah. I would love to tell a lot of the people who watch our show when they fawn over our carpenters and our plumbers, I would like to take them out on the weekend and say, why don't you come on their boats?
Yeah.
And see the companies that they run and the people that they employ.
You go into one of our parking lots, Kevin, you see more big trucks and that are costing those F-150s or so. And it's our men and women, they're all in, to your point.
We could talk about perception forever. Let's move on to some creative solutions that you folks are working on to, fairly complex problems. David, I'll start with you. When I left yesterday to come down here, there were 2 plumbers crawling around my house installing one of your combi boilers. Yeah. And I noticed on the wall they had piped copper, the same material that their great-grandfathers would have used 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. But that copper was going to the combi unit through a hydraulic separator, a super efficient heat exchanger, into a circuit panel that can self-diagnose a problem I can control by my phone, and they can even potentially diagnose and fix remotely. How are you creating an initiative, training that teaches the traditional skills, but also what we now all know are the new skills that are out there that are mostly digital, super sophisticated?
Well, first of all, Kevin, you're hired because I think you know more about HVAC than...
Just calling my guy right now to say to take the cost of the boiler off of my bill.
And I'm assuming that was a Wiesmann. We bought a company in Germany called Wiesmann that, if anyone's interested, it could help the quarter. But we, what I would say is that we will train at Carrier 100,000 technicians over the next 5 years. So we train our own folks, but we also train folks that are part of our channel, our distribution and our dealer channel. We have about a third of the residential market in the United States, and we work with about 300,000 dealers across the United States. So we're in about 30 million homes. So a lot of what we do is train folks throughout the channel. And a typical career path, you will see folks that are technicians. They start in residential, go to light commercial, kind of the rooftop units, and then will end up often on the bigger chillers in commercial. So we train every step of that progression. What has changed is using things like virtual reality and augmented reality, because it can give a much different virtual training experience than on-site training. It really supplements it very well. And we do have to train folks on the digital tools because all of our devices are now connected. So if you think about the data coming off of your boiler or a chiller in a commercial office building, we're using a lot more data to drive remote diagnostics. So if you think about someone who has to show up at this building, they have to park their van, they're often dealing with ladders, they have to find a spot. So it's very difficult. You got to show up understanding what the issue is, so you show up with the right part, diagnosing it. And then the future where we're going to much more is prognostics, where you can anticipate a failure before it happens. And a lot of our technicians are on the front line working with homeowners or commercial office building owners to deal with that diagnostic. So all of our technicians, it's a matter of fact that they're trained on not only virtual and augmented reality and use that as part of their training, but on the digital skills as well.
Marvin, 300,000 employees across the country. It's a broad footprint. You're in a unique situation where you're in all sorts of different communities, dealing with all sorts of different associates. How do you lean into the diversity that you're exposed to, but also to the types of workers who may be underemployed, and train them up to get them interested and to get them with the skills that we need them to have?
Yes, it's an interesting challenge we have, because when I look at the portfolio of stores we have, to your point, I mean, we're literally across urban America and rural America. And I oftentimes will tell people, we got stores in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and in Philadelphia, Mississippi. And trust me, they may have the same name, but they're dramatically different from a demographic perspective. But we have to operate them both. Operate a very urban store in a major city and a very rural store with a population, I think, of less than 5,000. And what you find out is that these issues tend to be prevalent in those two extremes. And so for us, we want to tap into those rural communities, and the best way to do that, as you've heard from Dave and Calvin, is just through the local high schools and the local community colleges. And in the urban areas, it's the community colleges, but it's also other organizations. And what we're trying to do is just leverage technology to make this easier from a virtual learning perspective. And as well, I mean, we've tried things that we have within our company where we have something called a task force that we put in place where we offer free tuition for our own employee base, where they can go not only get a 4-year traditional education, but also we'd give them the opportunity to go get a 2-year or community college. And it's part of our incentives, and we call it tracks of trades within the organization. Luckily for us, we've had over 25,000 of our employees to take advantage of this. And what we find out is that it's sometimes uniquely in these urban and these rural communities. And so you'll be surprised to find that the solutions are virtually the same. And it really comes down to education, comes down to communicating access, and finding the right institutions or organizations to work with to tap into that workforce population.
And when someone goes through tracks to trades, what does that process look like, and where do they end up?
Well, when they go through the program, we basically will provide them an educational curriculum based on what they choose. And what's really interesting is oftentimes when they finish, rather than stay as an employee with us, they will sometimes go and work for one of our customers, which could be a company like Carrier. It could be a general contractor. It could be a builder. And we're perfectly okay with that.
You cannibalize your associate base, and you're fine with that? Because
100% fine, because it fills the need that is much greater than we have a much greater need than finding, a specific employee. We would rather that employee go out and start a business. We'd rather that employee go out and work for another institution to be a little bit of a disciple, to share their own journey and to continue to educate and to bring other people in. And so we're perfectly comfortable cannibalizing our employee base as long as they take that skill and that skill is transferable.
Customers for life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Calvin, you have a unique skill. I presume it has a lot to do with the regulation of your industry, but working with state, local, federal governments. We were talking beforehand about the lack of a national energy policy and what you have to deal to do that. There seems like we have a lack of a skilled workforce policy as well. With your experience and background, what do you think can be done, should be done, to bring those groups together? And how do you create that pipeline of workers for your industry specifically with this giant retirement cliff that you are facing?
An alignment of federal, state, and local policy is on my wish list. But what you can appreciate is that every governor, every federal administration wants to put their fingerprints or their blueprint into work. So therefore, as an energy company, more importantly, as an industry, we need to make the adjustments. And as we make those adjustments, what we have to determine and what we have laid out are some core elements that are critical to meeting the need of the country. One of the things that all of us agree on to this point is that we are in an unprecedented time of growth. We talk about the skilled labor, but this growth is causing all of us to pause and say, what does this future workforce and future energy dominance look like, energy security? And we're now talking in broader terms than just the next year or two. So what we are really working on right now is what are the core principles as an industry. I have the privilege of being the chair of the Edison Electric Institute for the next year. And at the core, we talk about energy security, ensuring that we have a grid that is protected, not just from physical attacks, but cyber attacks. And then you then have to go down deeper when you identify that, or what are the skills in the future that we need in that regard. The next piece we talk about is affordability. If affordability is going to be a key driver in this industry, how are we going to attract the people and a workforce where it keeps our cost of labor and our ability to invest in the capital for this industry on the forefront? Resource adequacy. How do you get to build the transmission lines and the additional supply you need? Again, we're all competing for that same technical skill. One of the things that we did to go out and do this is that we looked at all the job openings we have across our company and said, does this really require a college degree? Mm-hmm. And over 70% of the jobs that were posted really didn't. What they required is some equivalent work experience and some certifications, but they didn't require a 4-year degree. So that is a process that we have went through with the industry, my peers and so forth, of identifying what do we really need and how can we fulfill that promise of keeping the lights on and the gas flowing. So that's how we're approaching it.
So to each of you, as we sort of start to wind down here, I'm curious as to your thoughts as to where we are in this process and how optimistic or pessimistic you may be about our ability to solve what we all acknowledge is a very acute problem, but also one whose solution is so important to the economic well-being and the security of this country. Anyone? David, why don't you?
I would say that in my opinion, where we are is that over the last few decades, the country's taken a step backwards and we have an opportunity to take a huge step forward. I think coming out of World War II and in the 50s, 60s, 70s, that there was so much pride in becoming a professional skilled labor in this country. And you mentioned perception issues. There's so much pride amongst our 1,000 technicians that we have in the United States here, and we're going to add another 1,000 over the next 5 years. And when I meet with them or I go to a job site with them, they are tremendously talented, tremendously dedicated. They care so much about the company, our customers, what they do. They take great pride. They take great pride in training the next generation. So there's something incredibly special about the skilled technical professionals that we have in this country. We just don't have enough of them. And I think what we have to do, and what Josh and the BRT has given us an opportunity with us co-chairing this new initiative, to do something as an industry. We are all, and as a community, because Calvin said it, but we are robbing from each other. 9 out of every 10 technicians that we hire is a rehire from somewhere else. Only 1 out of 10 is a new hire who's new to the industry. So all we're doing is passing the problem from one company to another. To see the business community coming together as one to make it more attractive, to honor, to reward, to recognize our skilled professionals, like they're the heartbeat of the country, and we need more people on the manufacturing line. We need to produce more. We need to support the equipment that we have out there. And I'm thrilled at the opportunity to come together with Marvin and Calvin and the rest of the BRT to make a difference in something that, so I'm incredibly optimistic. But we have to be pragmatic, and we have to be clear-eyed about the challenges, and we have to hit it with huge urgency.
We have one more order of business. So in a word or two, Calvin, Marvin, where are you on the optimism scale in terms of our ability to solve this problem?
Well, I'm a public company CEO, man. I have to be optimistic about everything. So I'm optimistic. And look, as Dave said, we're fortunate that the BRT has raised this to a level of urgency, and he and I are honored to co-chair this strategic initiative on workforce and skilled labor workforce. And so we're going to be working with leaders like Calvin and other CEOs and businesses to continue to raise the level of education, change the perception, and make sure that we put measurable key initiatives in place across all types of unique industries like the three of us represent, to really make a dent in this. And we do believe that there's an opportunity right now with the push for manufacturing jobs in America, and really just the reality of the issue that we have, just educating the general public. We think we can chip away at this.
Does that stand as the announcement of the initiative from you two? Does that cover the basis?
That's official. I think this is.
That's terrific. We're out of time, but I do want to say, from our perspective at this old house, the tradespeople who we work with, having your organizations and this broader organization, pushing into this, leaning into this, makes us extremely happy that it is happening. And we appreciate not just your time up here today, but wish you guys the best of luck because it is so important to all of us. So thank you very much for your attention, but also to these gentlemen for their insight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Hey, great job.
Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a short break and resume our program at 10:55. Ladies and gentlemen, please make your way back into the auditorium. Our programming will resume shortly. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, please make your way into the auditorium. Our program resumes shortly. Thank you.
I'm Sarah London. I'm the CEO of Centene Corporation. Our employees are what makes it possible for us to achieve our mission of transforming the health of the communities we serve one person at a time. At Centene, our culture is really anchored in our mission, and it is defined by a set of values and behaviors that are meant to guide not just how we show up for our customers and our members, but really how we show up for one another.
I'm Copper Thatch, Manager of Resource Coordination with Carolina Complete Health, a subsidiary of Centene Corporation. The Culture Ambassador Program is this unique workforce development program. It's kind of like an honors class for leaders. They gathered leaders from all across the organization. We made connections and went through training together and really just understood more how the business works. Leaders get to grow in mentorship, leadership, and training skills, all while shaping the culture of our organization.
We're really excited about the Culture Ambassadors Program, and it is really about taking the work that we've done to define our culture and bring that to life in a different way, and also create the right vehicle to drive culture change through the organization.
The Culture Ambassador Program has challenged me to lead my team better, and in that, we can lead the business better. Meaning my team and I, we have this shared set of values that are foundational to us working together. And when we work together, we provide better outcomes for our members.
It's been amazing to see just the energy that has created and the activation energy for this next phase of the culture transformation. The program has been a great opportunity for our ambassadors to go through leadership training and to use the skills that they learn to bring peers together and to train them on how we live and embody our One Centene culture day to day within the organization.
I'm Chris Nassetta, President and CEO of Hilton. In the end, at Hilton, our team members are literally the heart and soul of our company. And we know that when they're engaged and excited about their work, it shows up in the experiences our guests have. We have so many programs to support our team members' career growth at all stages of their career, one of which is called Shine. Shine's designed to give hotel team members the skills they need to advance into leadership roles at their properties.
I'm Paul Fitzgerald. I'm the hotel manager at the Hilton Baltimore. Hilton has provided me with many opportunities, whether it be development programs such as Shine or on-the-job trainings. Hilton does a great job in promoting from within, and they really take pride in developing their internal team members. And it's something that me as a leader now, as the hotel manager at the Hilton Baltimore, I take a lot of pride in with myself, with my current team.
Hospitality is one of the best industries that offers so much opportunity and so much upward mobility for people from all walks of life, including those with unique backgrounds. Hilton will continue to advocate for policies that promote workforce development and the skills people need to advance their careers and move up the ladder of opportunity.
Hilton right now is an unbelievable company to work for in regards to growth. The company is expanding rapidly throughout the world, and there are so many opportunities for individuals. Right now, Hilton talks a lot about developing bench strength, and they talk about wanting to promote from within and wanting to develop the team members that they currently have. And right now, as a hotel manager here, I can see that, and I can see how important it is to develop our team members, and there's so much opportunity for them out there, and it's really great to see.
The labor market is more competitive than ever, which is why we're continuing to invest in our culture and the programs, benefits, and initiatives that make Hilton the industry's best place to work.
Please welcome our next conversation, Creating Opportunity Across Industries, moderated by Nick Timoreos, Chief Economics Correspondent, The Wall Street Journal.
All right, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to the Business Roundtable for having me to host. Thank you, Jamie and Kathy, for being here. To get started, I'll put this question to both of you. Kathy, you can go first. We're in a period of significant policy shifts from trade to immigration, potential changes in university funding, international student programs. As business leaders thinking about long-term workforce development, how are you navigating this uncertainty? Are you seeing changes as obstacles to overcome, opportunities to reimagine how you build talent pipelines? What do you make of everything we're seeing in Washington here today?
Well, we've long believed, and I still believe today, that business needs to lead in ensuring that we have talent pipelines that are sustainable for the future, and that we cannot do that alone. So we look for partnerships like with universities, community college, K through 12, but we also look for government private-public partnerships that allow us to ensure that the policies, the funding streams that are necessary for those talent ecosystems to work stay in place. And that's as important today as it's ever been, because technology innovation cycles have increased in speed, and as such, universities need to be responsive to that, as do K through 12. And we are not seeing our school systems able to keep pace with the talent evolution that's necessary for the workforce.
Jamie, question to you.
So first of all, welcome everybody. Thrilled to be here. Some of these problems have been a long time coming. They're not like recent. Immigration, we all know what we should do. You had 2 bills in the Senate. At one point, we have, passed the citizenship for undocumented but law-abiding, more merit-based, seasonal workers, things which we are going to have to do one day. Schools, getting schools, whether they're high schools, community colleges, direct, CTE, direct training, universities to get kids certificates and skills where they can leave with a job making $65,000 or $75,000 a year. Second Chance Initiative, allowing people who paid their price, not violent criminals, but who've paid their price with the misdemeanor or felony, but get back in the workforce and make it very hard for them. We have to do all of that. I think it has to be done with business. It cannot be done with government alone, and it's got to be done locally for the most part.
Does all the kind of noise right now, the policy noise, create a distraction to getting some? I mean, we talk about these things for 10, 20 years. Is what's happening right now making it harder to make progress, to move the ball down the field on these things? Jamie?
Yeah, I'm always the same. And I think the BRT does a great job at this, which is you just got to put elbow grease into it. And you just have to keep on doing it and, don't pick and choose your spots. Just give it a consistent, coherent effort over a long period of time, and we'll eventually succeed. And, of course, there can be politics and stuff that we have to navigate. But, no, it hasn't changed our strategy at all. And I think the BRT is one of those great organizations that does things like this and can disseminate best practices, to chambers and other people around the country who can do the same thing.
And Kathy, of course, you're the first non-founder, first CEO of a global company to lead the board of the Greater Washington Partnership. Do the cutbacks that we began to see at the federal level earlier this year pose a challenge to this regional partnership in particular? And what role do you see for business, for corporations to step up in the event that you do see a pullback right now by the federal apparatus?
Well, the Washington Capital Region certainly does rely on the government for a number of employment opportunities, but it's still less than 20%. So business has the opportunity to see this as talent becoming available that can fuel the businesses that are located in the Capital Region. And the partnership is focused on helping signal what employers need, and as talent becomes available in the region, providing a matching function. But we can't do that alone. It's a nonprofit organization, and so this is where we convene the local governments, we convene the organizations that are oriented toward reskilling people, because in many cases, the talents that these individuals have aren't a direct match to what companies are hiring, and to join the employers in that activity. So the partnership is an important convening function for all of those organizations to come together and redeploy talent in the region so that it doesn't leave the region.
Today, of course, the BRT announced a new resource for employers to help them better partner with educators to build workforce development programs and fill in-demand jobs. Jamie, I want to ask you about what we're seeing today in terms of demand for labor. For so long, as a reporter, I heard about labor shortages, can't get the people that I want. If we're moving from an environment where we were long labor, where businesses could find the workers they needed relatively easily, to one where we're short labor, I don't know if you agree with the framing there. Is there anything that companies are going to have to do differently that's fundamentally different from what they did over the last 25 years to build that talent pipeline?
Yeah, so we are short a little bit labor. You can get labor, what you're really short is the skills you need. And so I'd love to hear Kathy speak about this, because she needs some very skilled people to do the things that she actually does. But again, it goes back to we all have needs for cyber. We all have needs for coding. We all have needs for programming. We all have needs for financial management and program management, things like that. Then you have some very specialized needs, some of which come out of the unions. So some do a great job at training people. But I think it's just getting out and going directly into the schools. And I would guess most of us go to a lot more schools now. And then we also work with schools who will work with us. So, some schools you can go to and they aren't going to change their curriculum. Other schools they think is great. And if you send people to train my teachers, I'll change the curriculum and help those kids get jobs when they get out. And there are some wonderful examples of that working.
Kathy, what have you seen in terms of changes? Are there changes that have happened either in training, recruitment, skills development that you've seen that are actually moving the needle on this?
Yes. So as Jamie said, we are seeing that organizations who are responsible for skilling have changed from a very structured and defined program to be more flexible to what businesses say we need in skills development, whether that's creating a specific certification program that is bespoke to an employer's needs or a more general set of skills that are responsive to in-demand areas rather than broad curriculum that's not meeting the needs of employers. It is specific to organizations. It's not something that can be mandated broadly. It takes a particular university or school program to say, yes, we're going to do this and we're going to partner in this way. But I think it's also important to recognize that employers play an important role in signaling those in-demand skills, supporting the schools in creating the programming necessary, because generally you have that expertise before they do, and then creating pathways into your programs. And often that's dropping the very rigorous certification or degrees that you require to be more open to this type of programming. And as employers do that, then it creates the self-funding mechanism for these organizations to stand up these programs.
Well, so let me follow up on that. The defense industry has traditionally required very specific credentials and clearances. So as you think about workforce challenges, are you having to reconsider who you hire or how you evaluate candidates? What would it take for Northrop to bring in people from less traditional backgrounds?
We have already done that. We have looked at our employment requisitions and reduced the number of certifications and degrees for many jobs and focused more on a skills-based definition for what's required. And as you note, in some cases we've had to work with the government because we've had contract requirements that needed to change to reflect this approach to broadening our talent aperture, but that was necessary to get the skills that we needed. We also have created internal programs. For instance, we have a 20-week apprenticeship in our manufacturing environment for airplanes, and we are working with community colleges, but even so, it takes people about 20 weeks to get in, really get the experience on our production line so that they can be productive. But we've shown the government by doing that and funding, we actually are reducing the overall cost of manufacturing an airplane just by investing up front in training programs and relaxing the requirements for individuals to come in, but replacing it with this structured certification that we've created actually opens the aperture to more people being able to join the workforce.
And Jamie, JP Morgan has made, of course, some bold moves that other financial institutions haven't, or you've taken the lead on second chance hiring people with criminal background. Not exactly a risk-free HR strategy. What made you personally willing to take that leap? And have there been moments where you felt like you had to defend that decision internally?
Yeah, so one of our guys, Peter Shear, said, you got to go to me. I was in Chicago. I think you always got to get out and learn and go visit. I forgot the name of the place. And I met with two ex-felons. They were both 35 or 40. They'd served time in jail. They had families. They were arrested when they're 18 and 19, mostly for drug-related types of things. They don't want to go back to jail, but they tell you that they can't get a driver's license, they can't get housing, they can't get jobs necessarily. The Chicago Transit Authority had given these kids jobs. One of the guys couldn't get a mortgage. I helped him get a mortgage. And, your heart goes out to them. People have paid their price. There's 70,000, felons or misdemeanors in the United States who have all these difficulties, and this is not good for society. The better thing for society is to give people jobs that bring dignity and incomes and less recidivism and less crime and less all these very positive things. And that's what started it. And then, the BRT picked it up. So it's not just J.P. Morgan. I think there are 40 companies now in the Second Chance Initiative. And then you're always learning. I remember going to Delaware, I think it was Delaware, and they called it expungement. And we were proud that we'd gotten 40,000 people expunged. You could take off your record after you've paid your price, et cetera. And I said, well, how many were eligible? 800,000. They don't know about it. The parole officer don't tell them. And so, look, there's just a lot of things that we have to do to roll up our sleeves to make society work better. And this is just one, and I'm just happy that the BRT is doing it because, one of the things the BRT does and, this work initiative does and things like Greater Washington Park, you learn best practices, then you can disseminate them. And that is one of the best way to get this thing working properly nationwide.
One other interesting initiative J.P. Morgan's taken on is getting involved in trying to fix curricula, a foray into education policy, both in D.C. and New York. Could be a lot of work for uncertain returns. What convinced you it was worth J.P. Morgan's time and money to?
So I think the New York City Jobs Council we did is so we went to the community colleges, and this is where Colin Powell went, okay, which is why I first learned about when he had me go up there and speak to some of the kids there. And these are great kids. There are a lot of them working part-time. Some are doing 2 years, some are doing 4 years, some are college, some are community college. But they all want jobs. And, and graduating, a lot of these kids end up doing, and it's not bad, but they end up doing retail or inventory or something like that. But there are jobs in coding and cyber and financial management. And there's a high school across the 59th Street Bridge in New York called the Aviation High School. 500 kids graduate a year. 95% of them get a job making $75,000 plus at 17 or 18 because they learn history and math, and we should teach American history and be proud of it, history and math, but they also learn how to maintain a Cessna, hydraulics, electrical, and high demand. A lot of it's their parents make them go because they want them to start life. They can go back to college. They can move up that career path. They go back to college. And so what you learn very quickly is you need these credentials. And in my view, the credentials need to be a class that counts for credit so that it's not an extra class. So if Kathy goes into a school and they're learning a complex task, if they get the credit, it's easier for them to graduate. That will count. And so we need to get them not just a credential, but also get them credits that they can take on and get to go somewhere else. I learned if you didn't do it that way, the kids had to go back for another class. A lot of them have part-time jobs. They have to go back, take 2 subway rides. They can't do it, and they can't afford it. And so you look at this, what we've done, it should be credentialed. And it's hard to get to schools because the first thing with the schools is they were resisting, business can't tell them what to do, which we're not. We're just saying, here's an opportunity. Please take this opportunity and get these. The goal is to get the kids educated in a job. And I actually think in Texas, I know there's one Texas thing where they're now paying people outcomes-based. I think the outcomes-based for high school, whether you graduate or not, community college and college, is did you get a job and what did it pay? Okay, not did you get a degree. And so I think we should change some of this. Just measure it. At least you can make these choices. And so the outcomes really matter on all these programs. And remember, as a nation, we're already spending, $800 billion in K-12? How much on state universities? I mean, we're spending a lot of money. So part of it is just redirecting how we spend the money. It's not philanthropy.
Kathy, I imagine you're competing for the same pool of STEM talent as Google, Amazon, J.P. Morgan, tech companies, to the extent that it's harder to offer them some of the stock options that might make them millionaires. How do you win that talent war? And when you get great people, what's keeping them from jumping ship?
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we have is the mission that we support, and there are a lot of people in this country who want to work on something bigger than themselves, and we offer that. And we also offer some of the most challenging technical problems of our day, whether that's how do you put James Webb Space Telescope 1 million miles from Earth and see back to the Big Bang, or how do you create a stealth fighter or a bomber that no one can see. These are the kinds of things that are unique in the engineering world, and we offer people the opportunity to work on these things and that they make a difference in the world. And we very much think of ourselves as in the business of peace through strength, which is something that a lot of people feel a strong resonance with. So that's how we recruit and retain. And we pay fairly, but to your point, if what you value is more monetary reward, you have other options. But if what you value is a contribution to global peace and stability, we're pretty unique in that regard. And there are plenty of veterans who want to continue to serve our country as well. So we create pathways for veterans. A lot of organizations do that. But veterans very much resonate working for a company like ours where they can basically extend their service. And we have programs that support homeless vets getting into jobs on our manufacturing floor, to veterans who are very credentialed, who help us to expand our business and think of new ideas and concepts to support our military. So we really think of veterans as a key source of talent as well.
You know, I feel like these panels are a fairly common occurrence in Washington. A lot of these issues, they're well known. We've talked about them. Obviously, the Business Roundtable has put forward some thoughtful ideas to try to break this apart. What, Jamie, do you feel like, where's the low-hanging fruit here? I mean, if the president called you up and said, I'm going to put you in charge of this, you can get 3 things done on this, on workforce development, training skills, you know, are there things where the federal government's in the way where, you know, boom, 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 this is where you would go first? The president calls and says, we're going to do whatever you recommend.
So first I want to agree with Kathy about the patriotism, why people work there. I mean, we have 1.5 million, and I think the military is an unbelievable example where 1.5 million people work in the military, more if you include all the contractors. And if they stay in the military, they're staying because of the purpose. I think people all need a purpose in life. You know, and you know, JP Morgan, we help communities and cities and states and schools and hospitals and companies and veterans. We have a huge amount of programs for veterans. And so, but if I was going to point out one thing, there's not one thing. Unfortunately, is there one thing? I said, no, there's not. The one thing, there's never one thing.
If there was a silver bullet, we would.
There is no silver bullet. We have to do this exactly what we're doing, city by city, state by state, school by school. Get, you know, the BRT involved, get you involved, you know, and I think the press, I mean, I think the press has a critical role to educate everybody so that you educate the influencers in life, you educate the staff of the senators, you educate the administration, and it's got to be an ongoing effort. You know, it can't be the breaking news of the day. This is about educating people consistently. I have a few ideas for media after this job I may take up on that.
Yeah, we can talk about that afterwards. You know, I asked Kathy about the Greater Washington Partnership. Jamie, you're involved in a regional partnership in New York, too. So you're both involved in these. But let's be honest, getting CEOs to agree on big things, small things, can be hard. What's the secret to actually making these collaborations work? And where have you seen them fail? When they go off the rails, you know, what's the
Yeah, this is an important thing. So the Jobs Council, I called up all these CEOs myself. And they all know the mission. Everyone, 100% agreed and 100% signed up. What happens inside a company, the company doesn't necessarily do that because they already have all their objectives, all their goals, and all their special plans and why we do that. So there's a lot of, I call it the rope-a-dope resistance you get inside companies. HR department doesn't want to do it. It's another thing. You got to go visit another school. And I understand that. So I'm not diminishing it. I just think it is a resistance point inside. So what you have to do is the CEO's got to get buy-in inside the company, why it's important. And the why it's important, and again, I'll brag on the BRT for a second. It's one of the only organizations where everything it does is because it's the best thing for the United States of America. It's not the best thing for the defense industry. It's not the best thing for banks. It's the best thing about policy for governance, education, health care, pensions, mortgages, all those things that matter. And you have to explain that to CEOs too. And most of them are quite patriotic. Most of them say, I got it, and I'm in. And then they, not all CEOs necessarily their staff operating that way. That happens with BRT staff. It happens with the other people. So it's hard. Institutions are hard to manage and to get rid of kind of all that bureaucracy that surrounds it and slows it down and makes it painful and stuff like that. I mean, we have that just like you have in the federal government. I mean, it's the same thing. You have to, roll up your sleeves and go at it every single day.
Kathy, I'd ask you the question I asked Jamie about. The president says, what can we do? Or maybe it's a governor. what do you need in this state? What do you need at the federal level? What's holding back? Again, I said maybe there's, if there were a silver bullet, we would have fired it. So maybe it's an unfair question, but I'll put it to you anyway.
Yeah. I think it's about regional playbooks, because at the end of the day, I think it's easy to get everybody on the field recognizing that education, continuing skilling is important to the citizens of a particular region. But getting your school systems, your government, your employers all aligned to execute and scale particular initiatives rather than going after it individually is how we make real progress. We can each tackle this independently, and we will make some progress. But then we in a region are trying to do 50 different things because there are 50 big employers, and is that really going to move the needle? Likely not. Or it might move the needle for your company, but it's not going to change the ecosystem. So in order to scale, we have to work together. And that's a bit of what Jamie was talking about, companies saying, we're going to drive this initiative through our organization, even if it wasn't invented here. It's about making sure we are consistent in what we're asking for of regional lawmakers, and that we're bringing the school systems into the conversation so that they can be part of creating what we need them to create. I wish we could do that nationally, but that's not how the United States is structured. These things are largely controlled locally, and so I think they have to be done locally and regionally.
We have just a few minutes left. I want to go back to where I started, which was on, I think, the elephant in the room, economic uncertainty. Of course, there's always economic uncertainty, but it strikes me that these workforce development initiatives do require long-term thinking, but businesses also need to be realistic about potential downturns. In a downturn, it's harder for some of this to get traction. So how do you balance, Jamie, these ambitious workforce goals with whatever economic headwinds we might face? And do you see more economic headwinds now compared to a couple of years ago, or is it about the same?
So, I started working in 1982. My dad, I remember the recession, 74 was terrible, 80 was a recession, 82 was a recession. We had real estate collapse in 90, we had another real estate problem in 94, we had the 2000 internet bubble, we had the great financial crisis. That's life. I don't buy this notion that somehow we have the right to expect everything to be constantly easy and easy to get by. There will be economic problems. The other thing I may surprise you on, I don't think you should make plans based on what you think the economy might do in the next 12 or 18 months. I mean, the plans you guys make, you're doing research now that's going to build the weapon for 15 years from now. And so, education is the same thing. To me, we don't do almost anything stop-start. Whether it's training people, hiring people, opening branches, hiring bankers, building technology, we have a plan, and we're going to do the plan, and then we navigate through the ups and downs of the economy. And we trim our sails maybe, but we never get rid of a program that we think is right. We get rid of them because we think we made a mistake or it just simply isn't working, and that happens. It's fine to do that, but it's fairly constant investment. And I think inside companies, they know you're doing that, and that's why you do have people who want to stay and want to help and want to build. I've seen companies that are just constantly start, canceling the training program, stopping this, stopping. Very hard to get going again, and then people don't really believe you're going to do it when you start again the second time. So navigate through it, but don't change your plans at all. It is hard because, like I said, some of these programs, I have had calls from CEOs, usually from their staff people saying, well, we look at our budget this year and I can't afford this $200,000. And I'm like, shame on you. That's not, if we don't do these things, we will not have a proper country. The $200,000 isn't the point, but if that's, what people do, and usually if that happens, they sell the stock.
Kathy, you got a final word.
Yeah, workforce development can't be cyclical, right? You might have more or less staff depending on the demand for your business's services, but you have to continually invest in the staff you do have. And if you aren't doing that, you are going to increase your retention and reduce your company's ability to remain viable. So in my mind, as Jamie said, those things are non-negotiable. You have to set aside the funding to support the staffing levels that you have, and if you need to modulate staffing levels, that's a wholly different conversation.
Great. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Nick, thank you. Folks, thank you.
So in 2021, Cisco shifted away from our traditional degree-based hiring, and we moved to something called skills-focused model that really just values competencies, experience, and potential. And we believe that in today's environment, expertise can be acquired through many alternative pathways, such as online courses, certifications, and even self-learning.
So I would say my background is a bit different from somebody else who has a 4-year degree. My father, he was a detective in New York City. My mother worked for the stock exchange. Neither one of them had a degree. Because of that, I found out that there were transferable skills that an individual can have, and with those transferable skills, you can be quite useful for a company. I worked for the banking industry for a number of years and decided that I needed to make a change. And someone here at Cisco reached out to me, and it was an awesome experience. From the interview and hearing a bit more about the company, I decided this may be a wonderful fit. I came in as a project specialist, and within the first year, I was promoted twice to then becoming a project manager. And shortly after that, they gave me the opportunity to lead the program for the talent-based initiative here at Cisco.
Not only did this commitment create more career pathways and give us access to a larger talent pool, but it helped us achieve a 96% retention rate among skills-first hires. It's also opened doors for ongoing skills development for employees, which has provided them with opportunities for continued growth. And without a doubt, over the past 3 years, this initiative has enabled us to create more dynamic, agile, and innovative teams.
There's so much momentum with the skills-based hiring initiative here at Cisco, the apprenticeships, the NetAcad experience. I think it's just going to be an amazing opportunity for hiring managers to hire some great talent. And then the support models that we have with the onboarding, with the mentorship, with the pair buddies, I just think that is going to be the way for the future.
Hi, I'm Scott Kirby, CEO of United Airlines. One of the great programs we have is Innovate, which lets people learn about digital technology and cybersecurity. And we bring people in from all kinds of backgrounds. We give all kinds of people opportunity to start on the first rung of the ladder and grow their way up through our digital organization. But it also creates an immense sense of pride with our employees who are sponsoring and mentoring those people as they come into United Airlines.
My name is Catherine Cooper. I go by Kat. I am an apprentice project manager at United Airlines. So I was introduced to the Innovate program through a workforce development program committed to developing careers for people from maybe underutilized communities. And so I myself was introduced to the program through the project sponsorship that United had for my particular cohort. We all just couldn't wait to work at United. I am definitely most proud of the work I've done in cybersecurity in the back end of our mobile app, and being able to protect our personal and our clients' and customers' personal information has been really fulfilling. So my time in Innovate has been marked by the very beginning of my interview with my manager, who had a very detailed plan for what he wanted my career to look like over the next 3 years. And what I've seen in the last 18 months is that he's been committed to my growth, understanding what it takes to bring someone from a workforce development program and then develop them through a corporate environment. So understanding that there was things that I needed to learn specifically in the work experience, but also that I would be supported by these different leadership classes that are offered by Innovate. And that together brings a wraparound support, which just catapults me into further greatness.
One of the things that is great about the Business Roundtable companies is that we are the ones that are creating great careers. We're the ones that are enabling solid middle-class lifestyles where people have opportunity and can aspire to a better future for themselves and their children.
Please welcome our next panel, The Promise of Public-Private Partnerships for American Workers, moderated by Kristen Silverberg, President and COO, Business Roundtable.
Thank you, everyone. I am thrilled to moderate this final panel with these two extraordinary leaders. We have Julie Sweet, the CEO of Accenture, who is one of the most impactful and visionary leaders in business today. She has led Accenture through a time of great growth and innovation and is a source of insight to lots of our BRT CEOs on what it means to lead in the digital age. We are equally thrilled to have Keith Sunderling, the Deputy Secretary of Labor. He is a passionate proponent of skills-based hiring and apprenticeships, the issues we're going to talk about today. He formerly served at the EEOC and in other positions at Labor. So thank you both. I'm just thrilled to have you. So Julie, let me start with you. Since you took over as CEO, you have really committed Accenture to skills-based hiring. Can you talk about why that was important to you and the impacts you've seen for both for your workers and for your business?
Sure. I just want to start, though, just to say how proud I am to be a member of the Business Roundtable and, listening to the panel, seeing the videos. I've actually been a member for 10 years now. And the commitment of the companies of the BRT to skills-based hiring, to providing pathways is really incredible. And I'm very, very proud to be a part of this organization and with these colleagues. Maybe just to kind of bring to life why this is so important for us, the Secretary just joined me about 2 weeks ago now in Ward 8 in Washington, D.C. It is the poorest part of Washington, D.C., Ward 8 and Ward 7. And he joined us for the opening of our cybersecurity center, where we have our first cohort of 50 apprentices. And those apprentices are are learning some of the most important skills we need in this country for competitiveness, cybersecurity. The per capita income in Ward 8 is $39,000. These apprentices start at $60,000. They receive 3 months of intensive training, then 9 months working on Accenture projects with the expectation that they will all be offered a job at the end, so long as they successfully perform over that year. So they're earning and learning. And what does that mean for Accenture? That means we have great talent that stays with us, which we've seen over the last several years of having apprenticeships be a core part of our talent strategy. We're more relevant to our clients because we've got more of the people who have the skills that they need, and our businesses thrive when the communities around us thrive, and that's what we're helping to do in Ward 8. So this is a core part of our business strategy. It is not a corporate citizenship program. It is part of our talent strategy, and it's a part of our growth strategy.
Mr. Secretary, reflect on that, because you have said apprenticeships are the future of the American workforce. The President has given his administration some really ambitious targets around that. Talk about why you see that as such a central issue.
In this administration, President Trump wants to put the American worker first. And how do we do that? And, as jobs are coming back to the United States, as manufacturing is coming back, we're excited at the Department of Labor to really focus on a program that is tested, that has been around for a long time, and that's the Registered Apprenticeship Program. And as we can see, that students right now, people in high school, entering the workforce, not everyone wants to go to a four-year degree. And there's been such a push to the four-year degree over the last few years, the last few decades, and to the extent it's made apprenticeship programs almost saying that, look, these are for people who don't want to go to school. And that's not true at all. They offer pathways to very, very successful jobs, high-paying jobs, but we have to change the perception of that. And like the program that you just heard about here in D.C., that's an apprenticeship for cybersecurity. And think about that. You want to be a cybersecurity expert, you want to get a cybersecurity job, 4-year college, maybe training after that. I believe it was 12 to 14 months where you can actually get a job at Accenture, learning real skills. And that's a prime example of what we're looking at, into broadening apprenticeships outside of the typical vocational trades. When you think about apprenticeships historically, where does your mind go to? Plumbing, HVAC. Those are really great jobs, and we need those jobs. But at the Department of Labor now, under President Trump's executive order, which I'll talk about shortly, we want to expand those to high-skilled jobs across the board, across all industries. And that's what we're looking for change. And with the BRT's help and a lot of your members' help, we're certainly going to get there.
So what the Secretary just talked about requires really expanding these programs at scale, taking the kinds of things you're doing at Accenture and doing them all over the country, involving lots of companies. Do you see barriers, Julie, to scaling really ambitiously, and how would we go about tackling them?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. So on the registered side, the Secretary is already working on streamlining that because that has been a barrier. So I would put that aside because I think that's going to get solved. I think the real challenge around scaling is that it takes real knowledge about like how do you access the people for the apprenticeships. You have to be able to teach and have the right skilling and learning. And then it can be costly, right? So if you want to scale, and I'm not going to steal your thunder, Mr. Secretary, about how you're going to scale in the number, but when you want to scale, we have to be able to make that affordable. And so if you think about small and medium-sized enterprises, which are a source of great job growth, it's really usually not, clear how they can provide the training, the support, the sourcing, and absorb the cost where, while apprenticeships may earn less than someone who's experienced, it's still an earn and learn opportunity. And then even at larger companies, who have, challenging economics, and they have to meet their bottom line, there's a difference between being able to do a small amount and a much larger amount for scaling. And so that's where I really believe that the public-private partnership is so important. And I know we're going to talk about some exciting things that we think we can do together in our communities.
Yeah, and this really gets to the core of it. Within his first 100 days, as you all know, President Trump issued a lot of executive orders. But he issued an executive order related to high-skilled apprenticeships. And that is really everything that we all need to accomplish together. And what it says in there is that the Department of Labor must get to 1 million new registered apprenticeships every single year. So I'm begging all of you for me to keep my job. There's an executive order that says the Department of Labor has to do this. But in all seriousness, as you just heard from Julie, how do we, in the sense, and very Washington, D.C. government word, and I have to use it, deregulate in the apprenticeship area. And part of the executive order requires us to look at all the potential barriers that have really prohibited, whether it's from a cost perspective, whether it's a sign-up perspective, whether it's the red tape around it, employers entering into registered apprenticeship programs through the Department of Labor at scale. And that's what we're trying to do. And if you look holistically at where the state of registered apprenticeships is, again, it's traditionally been in those vocational fields. Between construction and manufacturing, it's over 400,000 registered apprenticeships right now. Let's flip that to business. It's around 4,000. If you look at tech across the board, 40,000. But that pales in comparison to construction, manufacturing, again, where that perception of all these apprenticeships are. But there's like over 1,000 registered apprenticeship categories of businesses that can enter into this. So a lot of it, too, is going to be a PR campaign on how do we get other companies to get in this. And I really like to talk about the tech industry leading the way in this. If you think about now where students are, they've taught themselves how to code online in middle school, in high school. And to say that you have to now wait after you're 18, go to college for 4 years, then to be able to get that high-skilled tech job, they don't want to wait. If there's an opportunity, like I say, you can go right from high school to the pros, like a sports analogy. How do we do that here? And that's the apprenticeship program. We're saying you're graduating college, you have some of these skills, you can go work for Accenture, you can go work for any big-name brand you want, but we can't do that without getting the word out there that apprenticeships, registered apprenticeships, are all open to all companies across all industries. And that's really what the crux of the executive order is for us to get out there and sell that. But we can't sell that if it's hard for businesses to be able to enter in that program, if there's too many regulatory barriers, if it's too expensive, if they can't see the return on investment. And I think that's how you would look at it as a CEO.
Absolutely. So first of all, I absolutely love having a goal, because when you have a goal, you can't fail, right? And, we believe that apprenticeships are a path to better, higher competitiveness, or a path to better business. And so one of the things that we've also talked about is that there are barriers in accessing money and in how we work together. And I think earlier today in the last panel, they were talking about how many of us have so many great individual programs, and we just are at it, right? We believe in it and we go. I think the opportunity that we have together today with the administration and leveraging the Business Roundtable, and then in states around the world, around the country, being able to leverage the groups there, is to take Business Roundtable companies and their supply chains, which are usually small and medium-sized enterprises, and come together around a model that brings together the funding for some of the education that needs to happen, that perhaps eases the path for the small and medium-sized enterprises, and has us committing to scaling because we're bringing all those pieces together, and of course the not-for-profit as well, who can help with the sourcing and also some of the soft skills that we often need to bring to these programs. I mean, at the Business Roundtable, we have a great playbook that we helped produce with many of the companies here. And, you know, the idea that we've been talking about is how do we also, like businesses, set a goal to have our first program up and running, you know, by the fall. And so I've made that offer, as Kristen has, for the BRT.
BRT2.
You know. So,
getting my numbers to 1 million.
So we're looking, you know, I think, Kristen, maybe you can just talk about, you know, because this is the core of what the BRT is doing and why you want to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all want you to keep your job, and we want to help the president reach these ambitious goals. And so one of the things, going to Julie's comment, is how to create replicable models across this. We have a lot of companies like Accenture that have experience in the space. How do we bring that experience to other companies, to small business? And I think one of the really interesting things is thinking about where we start. I mean, maybe you can talk about what makes a good ecosystem, because for kind of launching a program like this, because you need committed companies, which we have, you need a good federal government partner, which we have, but you also need a really committed state and local government and other things. So maybe talk about how you would think about an ecosystem that could really help us move quickly.
Sure. I think it's really, I guess it's a five-legged stool, because there's the educational sources, right, that you have, which can be both private and public. There's state and local. There's the private sector, the federal government, and the state government. So and the not-for-profits, right? And those are, you know, the programs that we have seen the Business Roundtable do and that we have done at Accenture really have to bring all of those things together. And the barriers we faced in the past is often the ability to bring those together, the ability to access funding. And that's why so often, especially big companies, we just kind of go off and say, well, we can do it, but that's the limit to scale, because we can only do so much. And I think the funding piece, and particularly for the first pilot, is something that can really, you know, help us get going, because, you know, states around the country want to help. Non-for-profits, educational institutions, you know, this is something that we all care deeply about, and it's been difficult to do it at scale across companies.
And from my perspective, that's what we're doing through the executive order. That's what we're doing in this administration, is we're looking at all of our funding, all those dollars that go out the door for workforce development, and are they working? We're also looking at this as a business, and, you know, for years, whether it's directly through the Department of Labor giving out money, or giving out money through WIOA to our state partners, we're going to really take a hard look and see what the return on investment is in all those dollars. And they're not having those returns. We want to move them to apprenticeships, both from money going out the door from the Department of Labor and talking to our state workforce agencies and saying, this is a goal of ours. This is going to help us solve the workforce crisis we're facing in America, especially with high-skilled jobs, as more of these jobs come back. And we're going to really put it on the states as well. And in addition, helping out, you know, private sector businesses who want to engage in this, who've never seen this before. The Department of Labor can help there too, financially.
Well, more to come on our pilot program, but I hope when we reconvene this event, we will have you back and be able to report that we've made a lot of progress in meeting your goals and our goals as well. So, but I want to turn kind of look a little bit farther ahead and think about some of the future of work issues. I mean, you really dug in on these at the EOC, the impacts of AI, how that's affecting the workplace. How are you thinking about those things in your new role? And how is the Trump administration likely to tackle them?
You know, now it's about training the next generation of workers and our current workforce on using AI tools, learning AI, There's so much fear out there about job displacement about AI. That's all the news. It's been all the news for the last few years. But now as we see AI getting more sophisticated, there's that fear. And we have to dispel of that fear. We have to train our current workers and the next generation of workers on how to use AI, how to develop them themselves. So they're no longer afraid about AI displacement, that they're going to know exactly what AI is doing. They're going to know exactly how to use it to make their lives better, both personally and at work. And how do we do that? We have to start young. Another executive order the president issued within his first 100 days is related to AI literacy. And this is really, really exciting because it takes a step back and says, how are we going to compete on the global stage within AI? How is our next generation of workers going to learn AI? And in other countries around the world, they're starting to do AI literacy in middle school and elementary school. And that's why this executive order is so exciting. It requires the Department of Education, Department of Labor, and the National Science Foundation to come together to start developing that AI curriculum to get into classrooms as early as possible. And then also from the Department of Labor's side, from that workforce development, unemployment insurance, when people lose their jobs or people want to be reskilled, the Department of Labor, the states have a duty to do that. So how do we then teach AI literacy? And that is very broad. Everything I'm saying related to AI literacy, coding, how do we drill down on what those jobs are? And this is where the barriers need to come down. And this is what I'm most excited about, is talking to companies to see where those jobs are going. So those big companies where all those statistics are coming about, that we're going to replace hundreds of millions of jobs, this and that, industries are going to be completely wiped out. Well, it's not how do we prevent that? What are we going to do with those workers? And what are those jobs you're going to need now that we have technology doing some of those jobs, or now that technology is going to make us so much more productive or build so many more widgets? Where are those jobs of the future? And we don't know that from the government because that's your proprietary information of where you're going with your own workforce. So we can work together. We can get that information and start training the next generation of the workforce all the way in elementary school and middle school so they have those skills through high school, or if they want to go to college, or if they want to get into an apprenticeship from there, they're already trained and ready to go. But that's going to be a private-public partnership that we all need to do, where you need to basically tell us where those jobs are going. And then we could use that executive order to then fund the states, fund education institutions on those skills so you have those skills you need so the workers are ready to go.
Julie, even for Accenture's pretty technologically sophisticated workforce, you're really urging them to, move up the learning curve on AI. And what does that look like?
Well, first of all, I think this is extremely important, and that we move at speed, and the focus on both K through 12 and investing in today's workers is really important. And the Business Roundtable has always been focused on both, right? Because K through 12 is about the next generation, but the speed at which we need to do this cannot be underestimated or overstated. And that is what we really need to do differently this time, because I still remember how long it was taking to do just to try to say computer science mattered, in high school education. So we all need to collectively have a different mindset. And to give you some sense of what is possible, in November of 2022, when ChatGPT emerged on the scene at Accenture, we had 30 people working on Gen AI, 30 at that time, about half in our R&D labs and half with technology companies experimenting with Gen AI. 2.5 years later, I have 500,000 people who've received the Gen AI fundamentals. I have over 250,000 who've received advanced training, and I've moved from 40,000 to 70,000 plus of deep data and AI specialists. And most of that has been through the investment in learning, because there were not some huge amount of people out there that you could just hire with these skills. This is something that can be done. It can be done at speed, and it can only be done when you think about K through 12 and the broader working community through partnerships and thinking collectively, because the many small and medium-sized enterprises have to have these skills. This is how the consumers are buying. This is what's needed in B2B. And there is a big opportunity that, I think the federal government, and that is the intention of the Secretary and your colleagues, is to find a way from a competitive standpoint to work collectively to go at speed. And I couldn't, can't say enough about how important that is.
You used to chair BRT's technology committee and really launched our responsible AI work long before that became a big national conversation. Can you just say where are we right now in this debate about responsible AI, and how are the companies you work with tackling that?
I think there's been a big shift, actually, even in public discourse around so much fear as amount of, we have to ensure that AI is used for the good. And so we can see the data of companies who are invested in responsible AI programs. You see the technology ecosystem embedding it in actually how it operates. And so it's absolutely critical to do. And I don't think that's a debate anymore, right? It does go to why the BRT is really important. Where we're trying to let people leverage the things we do, and that was that first program we did, so that people didn't have to come up on their own, like what do they need to think about, and I think that's just grown. So I feel very positive about responsible AI being built in.
And I think that is the key to making all this work. As tech entrepreneurs and companies develop this very sophisticated AI for use on the workforce to make their jobs easier, to learn new skills, what we're seeing at the end of the day, it's really coming down to trust and employee trust. And right now, why companies are having issues with the adoption of AI in the workplace is that they don't believe their employers are using this for the right reason. A lot of these people, a lot of employees look at this and say, this is going to be my robot replacement. Why would I use this? Why would I help train this if this is going to eventually replace me in my job? And that's why, companies, I've talked about this at length, and I know BRT, you've done a lot of this too. When it comes to to having those responsible AI policies out there, that will then show all the way from the top of the organizations to entry-level employees that here is how we're going to use AI within this organization. And it's going to be used based on these principles, lawfully, et cetera. And that really helps employees buy in. And then once employees buy in, the programs are only going to get better. They're going to see how it's going to make workplaces better. And it all comes back to this broader topic of how do we change that perception? And what we see is that there are a lot of large global organizations, mainly your members on the AI responsible side, that have really embraced this, that have put all their policies, practices, and procedures out there for the public to copy. And you see small and medium-sized businesses will then take that information, integrate it to their own, and then also have responsible AI programs. And that's what I'd like to see, because we had a pattern of success in that with responsible AI, with the AI literacy as well, is you have a lot of these large global corporations, again, your members, that have developed these programs internally on how to train on AI, how to use AI, how to get that adult AI literacy, upskilling, reskilling, whatever you want to call it. And the more companies can lead with that publicly, the more companies can help us with those pre-existing tools that are top-notch, the best of the private sector, to allow us in the government to use those in our state workforce agency. So somebody who's lost a job and wants to reskill can go to a state work agency and actually get a skill that will get them a job for the future, opposed to how a lot of the workforce development training, retraining is now, where a lot of it is very outdated and doesn't have that return on the investment. That's where we really can go. So I think a lot of it is taking organizations in this room, publicly leading, showing you're doing it, whether it's the apprenticeship model, whether it's responsible AI or AI literacy, and making it as public as you can, working with us in a very public fashion. And on that sense, I want to show you something. As part of the AI executive order, we are doing a pledge to America's youth, investing in AI education. So as part of having that AI literacy out in the pre-K through 12, and in addition in the workforce, we're calling on companies, we're calling on education partners to join us in implementing the executive order. You can see it's got the nice fancy logo on here and everything. So we're looking for commitments on that. And it's really companies pledging to invest in America's K through 12 students and teachers by providing resources that cultivate the skills and knowledge necessary for an AI-ready workforce and the next generation of American innovators. So like I said, it's all coming back. A lot of these companies, you've already developed it, you already have it. Now pledge to work with us for the greater good of the American workforce.
That's fantastic. Well, our amazing BRT chair, Chuck Robbins of Cisco, is up next. So please join me in thanking our panel.
Please welcome to the stage Chuck Robbins, Chair and CEO of Cisco and Chair of Business Roundtable.
Well, good morning. It's still morning, barely. Have you enjoyed the event? Is it good? It's great. I just want to say a couple words. I want to thank the panelists and the moderators. I've heard a lot of great feedback from the morning. Also, Chris Kastner, who's the chair of the BRT Education and Workforce Committee, for his leadership on this event. And hopefully you enjoyed listening to the BRT CEOs talk about what they're doing in their workforces and how we're thinking about this in the context of probably one of the most disruptive times in technology history. Thinking about how do we build U.S. manufacturing back up, close the talent gap for skills. You just heard a robust discussion around AI, meaningful career paths, and how we're really trying to build a workforce of the future in light of everything that's going on. And we think it's so important for us to do this right for the American economy, for our global competitiveness, and for us to maintain our leadership around the world. From a Cisco perspective, we were just talking about educating our youth, and we have a program called Cisco Network Academy that's been around since 1997. And it was called Network Academy, but we branched out over the years. We have courses on entrepreneurship. We have courses on generic cybersecurity, AI, and we have literally had 2.6 million students in the United States go through different aspects of this program. And today there's over 300,000 students in that program today. And I think it's a great example of what we were just talking about relative to how corporations can take our assets and our capabilities and actually help educate and prepare the workforce of the future. We also track and have job placement platforms that are associated with network academies, and we have 93% of these students who actually get a better job or get a job as a result of it. So we think it's a really important thing. On to the AI front, we're all focused on AI skills now. You heard Julie talking about everything that they've been doing at Accenture. We've been doing the same thing at Cisco, and it's a big important thing to Julie because her company consults with companies like ours on how do you actually deploy this stuff. And it's super important for us because we actually build a lot of the infrastructure that runs all the AI connectivity, AI security, safety, and those kinds of things. So we've had a real effort to educate our teams. We talked a lot to our employees. You heard the Deputy Labor Secretary up here talking about employees being concerned. And what we tell our employees is that you shouldn't be concerned about AI replacing your job. You should be concerned about someone who understands AI better replacing you. So make sure you're educating yourself and you're really taking the opportunity to do it. And we're obviously providing a lot of that help as well. From a federal policy perspective, I do want to thank the Deputy Labor Secretary, Keith, for being here with us. We think it's super important for us to all work together to improve outcomes for U.S. employees, and it just requires smart policy. You heard a little bit about that just a few minutes ago, which we think is very important, and we welcome the opportunity to always work together. We advocate for smart education and workforce policies. Some examples are modernizing the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, creating workforce Pell Grants, expanding work-based learning, and earlier today we launched the Skills Trades Initiative, which is important work. It's important to the U.S. economy. I want to raise the awareness, and there are going to be so many opportunities, these apprenticeships or internships that we can all work on together, sharing best practices about how we do that. But we also know that there are broader policy issues that also impact this. Issues like tax policy, trade policy, energy policy, all of those affect how companies are able to invest in their workers as we go forward, and it's really important. And BRT remains eager to work with our policymakers to work on the policies that foster an environment that creates a very strong and competitive U.S. economy. I want to close by just thanking you all for spending time with us here again today. Hopefully you enjoyed the event, and hopefully you'll join us again. I think that we have lunch for you to keep the discussion going, and hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you very much.